been able to read the tea leaves in that sense about what the jury may have been thinking. Of course, Lester, because of COVID protocols, this has been a trial unlike none other. They were sequestered once deliberations began, and this was a jury of, it was 12 jurors, 6 white jurors, 4 black jurors, 2 multiracial, 5 men, 7 women. That really this trial has been so closely watched. Back going into jury selection, there was a lot of questions, a lot of anticipations about the jury questionnaire they had to fill out. There was a lot of concern heading into this trial that they would be able to find an impartial jury, but the judge took great pains to make that happen. And even controversy throughout the trial about whether the jury should be sequestered or not, the defense coming back after that Dante Wright shooting the day after and asking for the jury to be sequestered. The judge said no, that they would only be sequestered once they entered deliberations, and so that's where we're at. Again, the verdict breaking just a short time ago that the jury has reached a verdict after more than 10 hours of deliberations. We're expecting to hear that verdict within the hour, Lester.
All right, Gabe, I'll ask you to stay with us as I turn to criminal defense attorney and NBC News legal analyst
I think
Danny
the second-degree
Savalas.
unintentional murder, felony murder charge is necessary.
But talk about the 3
I am
charges
fearful
they
that
had to
they will hit him
consider.
with.
How complicated would it be
I
typically
fear
to go
that they will hit him
through
with
and understand what would be necessary for those
third-degree
charges
like
to
negligence
be found guilty on?
These are complicated charges in any ordinary situation, but Minnesota makes it a little more complicated by calling crimes murders that are admittedly unintentional killings. And you also have the confounding factor that second-degree murder and third-degree murder really aren't separated by degree or seriousness. They're separate crimes. Second-degree murder is essentially what's called felony murder, and the jury has to find that there's an underlying felony, in this case, aggravated assault. So they essentially have to find 2 crimes. And then you move to third-degree murder, which is totally different. It's murder committed during an eminently unsafe, eminently dangerous act, an intentionally dangerous act, which is different. It doesn't even require a felony. So the jury absolutely had some challenges here. And frankly, I'm surprised there weren't more notes sent out to ask questions about what exactly does it mean? What does intentionality mean? And then, of course, you have causation, which is always a tricky legal concept. Is it enough that he had his knee on his back and the person died? Or what do you need to show as a result? And what do you need to show about Chauvin's intent? These are tricky issues, especially causation, and particularly in this case, because causation is the one thing that if the defense prevails here, it's a defense to all charges, along with the argument that the knee restraint was authorized or acceptable under Minneapolis police procedure.
Let me ask you, maybe you answered it, but let me ask you this. It has to be one of the 3, or could there be any combination of those 3?
It could be a combination. It could be any, all, or none. Or, of course, we know this didn't happen, but they could have deadlocked on some or others. But we know that there's a verdict, and so it can be not guilty on some, guilty on others.
All right, Danny, I'll ask you to stand by as well and bring in Melissa Murray, an NBC News contributor and also a former law clerk to Judge Sonia Sotomayor. It is great to have you with us. I want to talk about, no matter what the verdict, there will be questions about the system. Did the system work? To the extent that the prosecution put on the case it did, to the extent that fellow police officers testified against Derek Chauvin, would that remove any questions about the system and how it worked, the fact that it ends up coming down to these 12 jurors?
Well, I think it suggests the way in which lawsuits or litigation are often ill-equipped to address the broader social problems that these questions often raise. So we saw the prosecution present a case that really focused on Derek Chauvin being a kind of rogue cop. So they didn't put policing on trial. They put Derek Chauvin on trial. But the larger conversation that's happening across America is really about whether policing protocols are actually appropriate, given the nature of some of the encounters that police officers have with civilians. So there's a different kind of conversation happening on the ground that just really wasn't happening in the courtroom, because understandably, this prosecution wanted to get a conviction, and they really couldn't get a conviction, or at least not the way they wanted, by prosecuting the police more generally.
Yeah, and that's the question. Their idea was, we're not prosecuting the police, we're prosecuting this one person. But as you say, on the streets, that's not what you're hearing from people. This is being seen as part of the reckoning over race and police use of force.
And I don't think it helped, Lester, that during the course of this trial, we had so many other episodes of police violence involving civilians, the Adam Toledo case, the Hernandez case in Virginia, and then, of course, the Daunte Wright case. So it seemed almost as though during the course of this trial, there was this ongoing epidemic of violence. And that wasn't something that the prosecution was really equipped to address in their case against Officer Chauvin.
Oh, just regular.
Let me go back to Danny Savalas. Danny, are you surprised?
Is there like a USB here that I can
this verdict? Does anything stand out to you as we await the obvious verdict?
Love this space.
You talk about that this verdict may have come back very quickly, but if you look at average verdicts, even in serious crime cases, sometimes a jury's only out for a couple hours. This jury has worked for 11 hours or so, as Gabe and you talked about earlier a few minutes ago. So they have put in the work. I mean, they've been in that jury room, and what that tells us is that some of these issues may not have been as complicating as we may have thought here on the outside. And of course, we never know exactly what they talk about. But, it could be the case that they either found that the prosecution failed as to some essential element like causation, or the opposite, that the defense raised really no reasonable doubt in their mind. They got in the room, closed the door, looked around and said, everyone's in agreement, right? Sometimes that happens.
I'm going to ask you a personal opinion. Do you think the prosecutor got it right in the charges that they brought forward? Were there other ways to have tried this case, other charges that might have been more appropriate?
Well, I think you can fairly say that, reasonable minds can differ as to what Derek Chauvin should have been charged with. But I think it's reasonable to say that at least one of the charges, which I believe was the third-degree murder charge, was a stretch because a court said it was a stretch. A court dismissed it, and then it was reinstated. So that was, I don't like to use the word stretch because it's not a legal term, but that kind of hung in the balance for a while before it was finally reinstated. So, probably the easier case to bring would have just been the manslaughter, but the prosecution here was ambitious, and they brought a case that was initially tossed by a court and then reinstated. So those are the cases they have. But all said, they put in a very strong case at the end of the day.
Danny, thank you. I'll ask you to stand by. I want to go back to Gabe Gutierrez, who's outside the courthouse in Minneapolis. And Gabe, we have seen that image behind you of the military vehicles and the extra barricades there. We all, of course, hope that there will be a peaceful reaction, whatever it will be. Can you tell us, are there voices in the community who are actively trying to encourage calm?
Oh, certainly, Lester. And the Floyd family has said, repeatedly that they want calm, that they want peaceful protests. But at the same time, this is a community that has been hurting. We were here since, shortly after George Floyd's death last May. And many of the people that we have spoken with, even the last several days, they were telling me, Lester, that they had a very difficult time watching this trial. That this was a trial that brought back a lot of painful memories and brought to the surface something that they had been dealing with, not just for months, not just for years, but really for decades, not just in this community, but also in Brooklyn Center nearby, in Chicago, which you mentioned earlier, has also been seeing protests, and so many communities across the country that have really struggled with how to deal with police encounters. And this is seen, you mentioned that the prosecution really tried to make this, and especially in its closing arguments, tried to stress the point that this was a trial about not who Derek Chauvin was, a police officer, but what he did. Yet, as you said, Lester, many folks in this community, and I know the Floyd family as well as Reverend Al Sharpton, as this trial was getting underway, said that this was a trial of the American policing system. And so many of the demonstrators that we have seen, they don't know what the verdict will be. Some are fearful of what it may be. They have told me that they have been traumatized by having to relive parts of George Floyd's death that was so difficult to watch on that video, with Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. But yes, and some others have said that this militarization, in their words, of the preparations for this trial, some 3,000 National Guard troops.
Schools in Minneapolis have been canceled for tomorrow.
Minneapolis have been
the fucking areas have been boarded up.
Police precincts for weeks.
Areas have been boarded up. National Guard has been deployed. Everyone is currently just waiting. Okay, we're in a fucking holding pattern.
Community for the past several weeks. The mayor telling me as this trial was getting underway, as jury selection was getting underway, that this was one of the most significant moments in Minneapolis's history. So, Lester, I don't think the the significance of this trial, not just for this community, but really for the entire country, it can be overstated. Right now, as we're seeing, you may see some folks walking behind me. There's, they're starting to gather outside of this courthouse. Behind me, you've been seeing this picture of this military vehicle behind me. On the other side, there have been, demonstrators that gather there. They've been gathering on both sides of the courthouse. Yesterday, some of the protesters put up air fresheners on some of the side of this wall, signifying the encounter with Dante Wright. And there were these peaceful protests. These marchers went across the streets of Minneapolis yesterday, as they have done, really, for the better part of a year now. But yes, the word has quickly spread, Lester, that this verdict has been reached. They are now anxiously awaiting.
Listen, for the people who are wondering or asking why this, like why all of this shit, why is all this happening? Like, it's because the justice system. It's because at the heart of what people are, criticizing and what people have been complaining about is the fundamental flaw within the American criminal justice system that justice is rarely ever served in cases where there's black victims of police violence. Okay, literally during the process, during this the ongoing court trial of Derek Chauvin murdering George Floyd in cold blood. That was basically televised as a televised event that everyone around the world fucking saw, that 45 specific witnesses encountered, tried to stop, and were pushed away from. Okay, pushed away from actually stopping this murder from happening. Even while that fucking ongoing court case is occurring, there was yet another police murder. Okay, there was yet another police murder of Dante Wright, 20 years old. Stopped because he has an air freshener, who was murdered by a 26-year veteran of the police force who was literally training other cops at the time. There are so many fundamental issues within the criminal justice system. So obviously, and that happened 10 miles away. So that's why the people are fucking fed up, because they have to protest to even get to this level. They feel as though they have to straight up nonstop protest so that justice can be served. This doesn't happen in other countries, especially if you're watching from a European country. Police murders are already unique. Right? A cop killing a civilian, an unarmed civilian, is already a unique situation. So that happening as the likelihood of that happening twice while another fucking ongoing case is happening in the same region, well, that's really fucked up. So understandably, people are upset. France has the same issue you say, but it's nowhere near. It's nowhere near. Anyway, look, I'm going to go back to the special report from NBC. But before I do that, as you already know, it's the top of the hour, every hour, where we have a 60-second ad break, okay? If you no longer want to see the ads, if you want an uninterrupted broadcast experience, you already know what to do. You have to subscribe. You can do it for $5, or you can do it for free. I'm in the Cash App compound right now because I'm doing another thing, and I didn't realize that the verdict was going to drop today, okay? I just didn't know. That's why I'm in here. So you can subscribe for $5 a month. You already know the deal. Or you can subscribe for free by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get one free Prime subscription a month. Or you can use AdBlock.
No justice.
If you'd like as well. So I'm going to run the 1 minute ad now, and I'm going to keep running 1 minute ads in the top of every hour. So here's the 1 minute ad now. Okay. Cash App really cashing in on this bet? No, Cash App is not cashing in on anything. I don't even listen, motherfucker. I don't think anybody wants to be sponsored on a stream where I'm talking about police brutality in the United States of America. Okay, I don't think Chad understands. This isn't exactly brand friendly. Okay, nothing I do is exactly brand friendly, but this specifically is not fucking brand friendly. I just happened to be here today because I was doing something entirely different because I thought it was going to be 420. We were going to have like a fun little fucking 420 stream like last year where I smoked weed and did all that. Yes, I know the verdict has been reached. Yes, the verdict has been reached and will be read between the next 30 minutes to an hour, chat. Did you know that the yellow was going to go well with the purple? No, I did not know that this room was going to be purple. What time does your 100th use event start? I think this event started already.
6 months of trials and police brutality. Pog is right. Thanks for the content.
Is this Hiko's cube? I think he has streamed in here before. Yes, I saw that his name was on here.
You say peacock and nobody bats an eye. You say poopcock, and everybody loses their minds.
Okay, dude. Jesus Christ. All right, let's there is an exclusive interview with Donald Trump that we could still fucking go back to, but I want to see this Biden on the Chauvin trial take. What the fuck is this ad? Jesus Christ. Well, they don't have ad block on these. Unfortunately, the only problem I have with the Cash App compound PCs is that they don't have ad block on them.
No peace.
You good?
Cash App told me.
What?
To go like this.
Oh yeah. Well, we're waiting on the Chauvin trial.
Yeah, it's been announced, hasn't it?
The verdict has been reached. It hasn't been announced yet. We don't know what the.
What do you think is going to be the verdict?
I think it's going to be.
It's got to be guilty.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
If they reached it that quickly, it's got to be guilty.
I mean, there's conflicting information on it. Some people say that a quick verdict is often one that sides with the defendant, because you know the you're not going through the complicated like legalese, I guess, or the legal jargon to like establish guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But I do think that it's in this instance it's so high profile. There have been there's so much information. Like there's so much fucking information available. Conventional wisdom is that a fast verdict is a conviction. It's not necessarily so, and sometimes it's wrong, but no defense attorney feels good about a fast verdict. However, I would want to examine the exact language of the font of the jury note announcing they have a verdict to predict confidently. I do regret being deprived of cable experts opining on the meaning of jury notes. Those dear souls earn their keep. Okay, whatever that.
Is this going to be on like live? Are they gonna?
Yes. In 25 minutes approximately.
I'll be back in here. Can I watch it with you?
Yeah, you can be in here if you want. Yeah.
I don't have to be back on for a while.
Are you okay?
Well, I
yeah.
just did the intro and then.
Okay, so we're waiting on it right now.
All right, I'm gonna go pee.
All right, you go do your thing. I need to pee as well,
This has
actually.
been a very deeply personal case that we have seen play out across the country. Protests here yesterday, as we mentioned, but also protests across the
really
country.
Bad too. You go pee
And
first.
this is
I'll
also
sit
something
here.
that we know law enforcement has been
Poggy's
preparing
has
for several months now. Here in Minneapolis, we know that there are some 3,000 National Guard members activated. There's law enforcement from other states on standby as well here. They are certainly hoping for the best, peaceful protests, but they are ready for violence. Allison?
Megan, we also know the White House is preparing to make some sort of a statement. The president planning to address America once we have a verdict here. Earlier today, he told reporters that he spoke with George Floyd's family yesterday after the closing arguments. What do we know about that call?
We know that the family, as you mentioned, they did speak with the president. It didn't last too long. I actually asked them about this just yesterday, and they said that they had an opportunity also to speak with President Obama several months ago, that call lasted longer than the one with President Biden, but they appreciated it. They said that it meant a lot to them to hear from the commander-in-chief at their darkest moment. I want you to listen to a little bit of what they said. Take a listen.
He was just calling. He knows how it is to lose a family member, and he knows the process of what we're going through. So he was just letting us know that he was praying for us and hoping that everything would come out to be okay.
Prayers. That's what the family says they have been leaning on this entire time. They have been in the courtroom watching every single moment unfold of this trial. It's been traumatizing for sure, but they are leaning on prayer to get through it, and of course, anxiously awaiting this verdict that will be read here in just the next couple of minutes. Allison?
Yeah, we'll hear that verdict in a matter of minutes. Megan, thank you for being with us right now. I know we'll be checking in with you later. Thanks so much. All right, let's bring in Cynthia Oxney. She's a former federal prosecutor and an NBC News legal contributor. And Glenn Kirshner, he's a former federal prosecutor and an NBC News legal analyst as well. Cynthia, I want to go to you first, because yesterday when we spoke, you said that you thought that we would have a decision here by the end of the week. Are you surprised that here we are on just Tuesday and we have a verdict?
I am, and I think it's very good news for the prosecution. I find it almost impossible to believe that there would be an acquittal with this much speed. I think it's very good news for the prosecution. And then the question is, what happens next, right? And if we're watching the cameras, this is just for our viewers, when you're watching the courtroom, what you might do is look and see what are the court officers doing. If those court officers start to move and get closer to Derek Chauvin, then you know, because they probably know what the verdict is, right? So just for a little bit of color, watch those court officers and see where they're standing. Because in most cases like this, a murder conviction with a long sentence and not a likelihood of appeal, I mean, you would expect that the defendant, if convicted, would go straight to jail. We call that being stepped back. So that's what I'm looking for. I think it's a very good sign that it's come back early, and I'm looking to see if he's stepped back.
Just make sure that it doesn't show. You can.
Glenn, your reaction to the verdict being reached this quickly as well, and what will you be watching for in the courtroom in just a matter of moments?
You know, I agree with Cynthia. A quick verdict, the prevailing wisdom is a good verdict for the prosecution. Why is that? Because there is so much that we go through, prosecutors go through in the run-up to a trial. A judge had to approve an arrest warrant and make an assessment of the evidence. A grand jury had to vote to indict, which is an assessment of the evidence. The investigators, detectives, and agents and prosecutors had to make an assessment of the strength of the evidence, and all of those factions basically agreed this case should be tried. So a quick verdict generally means everyone in the system got it right, and the jury convicts and holds the offender accountable. That's not a guarantee, but with a verdict...
It's not a guarantee, but I mean...
counts. This is not a split verdict, because they announced they have unanimous verdicts on all counts. I would be shocked to see anything but 3 guilty verdicts on the...
Me too. Me too.
Glenn, remind our viewers, if you will, as well. We're talking about 3 charges here, as you mentioned: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter. Could you just sort of talk through?
He's going to be guilty on all 3.
What the differences are here, and what they should be watching for as they read the decision on each of those particular charges.
Sure. The interesting part is none of these crimes require an intentional killing. The most serious of the 3, second-degree murder, can be proved by an unintentional killing committed during the course of a felony. And that's why I thought prosecutor Steve Schleicher's argument was so strong when he said, because of the excessive force, what Derek Chauvin did was a felony assault.
Been a long time watcher, but haven't been able to sub in a while.
Murder.
Love you, bro.
And I hate to get ahead of ourselves and talk.
I love you too.
But, you know, the maximum sentence for that second-degree murder charge is 40 years in prison. However, there are guidelines that try to norm across the spectrum
of convictions, you know, taking into account an offender's background, the circumstances of the crime, prior record of the defendant. But I would say, you know, the sentencing guidelines are only going to govern so much because this case is an outlier. Okay. This is a police officer who swore to protect and defend the citizens of Minneapolis.
Let me go get a chair.
Only to execute
I was doing some good commentary, I think.
In broad daylight on videotape. So this is a case where I could see something called an upward departure.
Sorry, I was peeing. I was getting my mandatory.
Even if the guidelines for the ordinary second-degree murder case, the more
I was getting my mandatory pee break.
Second-degree murder case might set a particular sentence. I could see the prosecutor say, all bets are off in this case, and judge, you want?
Can I get water?
Sentence
I saw the food availabilities out there. It's kind of whack.
How he violated.
Not exactly great.
There's no chicken tendies.
No, there is. There's like grilled chicken.
All right, Glenn and Cynthia, thank you both so much for being here. We're going to head back out to Minnesota. I know we will be checking in with you both throughout the evening. Thank you so very much for being with us. All right, let's head over to MSNBC anchor Ali Velshi. He is in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, where he's been keeping an eye not only on...
This is not a house. This is like
Derek
literally a
Chauvin
fucking
trial,
studio,
but
a massive
also
studio. There's so many people here. There's hundreds of people here.
In the shooting of Dante Wright. Ali, tell us where you are. Tell us what's going on there. What is the air like, the environment like, if you will?
Yeah. Sorry, Allison, you had bad information there. We are actually right here in downtown Minneapolis. I'm right next to the court. This is where the jury is assembling.
Yeah, I should have known by the fencing, Ali.
So, no, I know. I'm sorry. We'll deal with that later. But we got 2 layers of fencing all around this, National Guard and police. Here's the interesting thing. This is actually a transit plaza right here. You'll see one of those trams coming in right now. This is usually fairly busy. It's toward the end of the day. When word of this verdict came out, downtown emptied out. There was almost like a traffic jam. All the garages in the buildings. Everybody started to leave. You can see here what could be coming close to the end of the day. There's virtually nobody on these trams. There's nobody waiting to get on these trams. They're emptying things out right now. There is no gathering of people here in downtown Minneapolis. This is faster than I think a lot of people expected. There have
you can hear it from this, right?
Crowds gathered over the last few days. Last night we had a group of a few hundred. Here's how it's looking in terms of safety and security. There's no direct interaction at the moment between police or National Guard on one side and the public on the other. In fact, the streets are largely empty of police. There are National Guards officers on various street corners. They're riding with police and with EMT. By the way,
motherfucker has Bogue in his mouth.
All police and EMT.
They're just smoking cigs.
Everybody's at work.
What is that? Is that like a
in session right now? It's ending now. We're toward the end of the day. There's no school scheduled to be in session for the next 3 days. So this is a little earlier than everybody here had actually planned for. But tension levels are high, and we are all waiting to see what happens in this verdict. Allison.
So, Ali, you have been spending the last few days in Minnesota. You've been there in Minneapolis. You've been in Brooklyn Center. Could you sort of compare for us, if you will, what it's been like and how it's been different in those 2 places? Because when we checked in with you in Brooklyn Center this week, you did see some folks milling about. It did seem less of a fortress. Minneapolis just seems, you're only 10 miles from there, but it seems like they really have the city on lockdown right now.
So the similarities is businesses are all boarded up. You can see this is actually a government building here, but you can see all the boarding up here. This is what everything looks like.
People want to describe like
in Brooklyn Center,
additional
all the businesses around the police station.
It's a tense situation no matter what, and the city's on lockdown because people are fucking expecting potential riots to happen. And the reason why they're expecting potential riots to happen is because
with Brooklyn Center,
look, there's so much injustice that they're expecting the worst. Like people literally think that what if, because people literally think that if he's acquitted,
this is now downtown
when he's like literally caught in fucking 4K,
this isn't the scene of the crime, if you will.
144p, like 1080p, like he's been caught in like numerous different angles.
Actually a little bit concerned because if people are going
so many fucking witnesses in the entire world saw it.
It's not clear where exactly you demonstrate. If you remember a year ago, it started at one police station and that was overcome.
I know. I'm saying
your internet connection is not.
I'm saying he's been caught from fucking 144p to 4K. Okay, that's all I was saying.
You do not have fiber. And you are getting 3 megabits per second download.
Motherfucker, all the pixels. 144p. Like, he's been caught on a fucking Motorola Razr phone footage all the way to, like, straight up 4K fucking Sony Red.
Yeah.
That's my point. And obviously people are very invested in
Just
this
hit
for understandable
300K
reasons.
channel
This is
points.
like
Let's
such
be
an
happy
open and
420
shut case that you know, people have been following for a year now. And you know, they're just waiting on the verdict at this point. And a lot of people understandably are frustrated and will most likely get really fucking agitated no matter what happens, no matter what the charges are. Anything but like the full Monty, anything but the unintentional second-degree murder is going to probably cause a lot of grief. That comes along with a max fine or max. I think what is it? Unintentional second degree is it minimum or it's maximum 45 years, I think, of prison.
And he's how old? 45?
It's max 40, max 25, or max 10. Those are the three.
Can he be convicted on all three?
It doesn't matter. It's like you can stack them, but I mean the third degree murder charge is lower than, you can be convicted of all three, but the third degree charge is lower than the second degree murder. He was a cop with no prior history. No way he gets max sentence.
No justice, no peace.
Oh.
Allie, sorry, I just have so many questions because you're there, and obviously we are not, but we're aware of what's going on, right? Because we're in the news. Everybody knows this verdict is coming in a matter of minutes. Do folks there know that that's about to happen?
Yes. Well, that's what triggered the exodus from downtown. I mean, literally, we're all within a 2-block
they all started
area.
moving,
He had 18 complaints. He had 18 prior complaints, by the way, for the record. It's not fucking.
You'd go by
it's not that he had no priors. So you're wrong about that.
Shut down. So I didn't think there were that many people here in the first place in downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah. Oh, here's the I was looking for this. Thank you,
The
Themasius.
traffic light closest to the courthouse has now been put on flashing red.
Okay, here. These are the charges once again. If he gets second degree murder, he gets 40 years. If he gets third degree murder, maximum sentence is 25 years. If he gets second degree manslaughter, he gets a maximum sentence of 10 years. The fear is that he gets second degree manslaughter and gets hit with 10 years. That is the lowest, like max 10 years. That's I think that was the same in the Mohammed Noor case. The point is, the reason why this is huge as a case is because in Minnesota's history of policing, there's never been a white police officer who has killed a black person and gotten convicted of murder. Okay, this is literally the first. Out of all the police murders that have happened, it's never happened. The only instance where a cop was ever, in recent years, the only instance where a cop was ever charged was when Mohammed Noor murdered Justine Damon. Mohammed Noor was a black Somali Muslim cop who shot an Australian immigrant, Justine Damon, and he got 12 years. Okay? When the officers who killed Rodney King were acquitted, there were riots because they were justified. They won't know what to expect, so we're preparing. You should know, you live in LA. There's probably people near you who are around when it happened. Riots will come as long as justice is denied. Yeah. And this isn't even justice. This is the start of justice. Okay? That's what I'm trying to stress here. Like,
let's hope Chauvin
this is the start of, this is the minimum, the bare minimum right thing in this circumstance is him getting second degree murder. Okay? So, like, you know, just keep that in mind. When I say, like, I'm hopeful about the jury, I'm hopeful about the verdict, I don't mean, like, I'm hopeful about the entire criminal justice system starting to reform itself or starting to change from the bottom up. I just simply mean that there could be a crumb of justice
getting
in this
encroaching on
instance.
public property, getting in private property, not getting into it with pedestrians or drivers. There were these marshals in front and behind and people on motorcycles. Again, not police, but keeping the whole thing orderly. So there seems to be some effort at doing that.
All right, Allie, thank you so much for all of your coverage and color there today, helping us to get a sense of what it's like there in Minneapolis. We really appreciate it.
In 8 minutes, they're supposed to come out with the verdict.
8 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been paying attention to the trials or anything, but how could it have been premeditated murder? I'm not saying this is in an aggressive way. It's not. Second-degree murder does not mean that it's premeditated. Second-degree murder means that in the state of Minnesota, which every state has a different legal designation for these sorts of crimes, okay? But in the state of Minnesota, second-degree unintentional murder means that he intended to commit a third-degree assault, a felony assault, which then subsequently led to the murder of George Floyd, which is, I think, a completely reasonable and completely justifiable charge. It's not like it's not premeditated in the sense that, like, you know, Derek Chauvin knew who George Floyd was, or Derek Chauvin intentionally was like, I'm going to kill George Floyd by using this specific procedure. You only need to show that he intended to use a procedure or use a movement on George Floyd that could kill him. A move that would literally choke slam him in the ground. Him knowing him or him not knowing him does not matter, chat. So stop fucking saying he knew him, blah, blah, blah. It does not matter, okay? What matters is whether or not he intentionally fucking, whether or not the jury believes that he intentionally choking, Derek Chauvin intentionally choking George Floyd, pulling his hands up with his hands cuffed behind his back, and putting his knee on George Floyd's neck was intentional, and that contributed to George Floyd dying. That's it. The knee on his neck and the knee on his back.
I need to stop drinking.
Why? Are you drunk already?
Oh, man. Jesus. I'm a lightweight. Oof.
Are you serious?
Okay.
Aside from that, aside from
I'm gonna
this
go to the bathroom.
thing that's going on, we also have... we're currently at the Cash App compound because we were supposed to do a Uno tournament today with Cash App.
Jesus Christ. One fucking truly. Are you kidding me? 2 of those motherfuckers?
What?
2 of those motherfuckers, and I'm already fucking...
Okay, you fix yourself up. Austin is a little worried, and because he's hosting the event, so he might be he's a little okay.
Fox News is a former federal prosecutor and an NBC News legal contributor, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and an NBC News legal analyst. Glenn, Cynthia, we were talking with you just a few moments ago. We've got moments until we reach the verdict here. Cynthia, to you first. We're getting a verdict pretty quickly here. What are your expectations when we hear from the jury in just a matter of moments?
Oh, my expectation is there will be a conviction on all counts.
I think riots might happen even if he's convicted with the
that's because it's so quick.
with the best possible conviction
really
for
logically.
the prosecutors.
What are the chances that you would have a quick verdict that would be an acquittal in a case of this magnitude with this many exhibits and this much video to watch? I just think you'd have people in the jury room arguing before anything like that would happen. And this is an overwhelming case, and it's not like most police cases. Right? Most police cases, there's a split-second decision that we're arguing about. Most police cases have the police officers all on one side. In this one, it was overwhelming, and the police supported it.
From the right?
All
no,
right, Cynthia,
motherfucker.
Glenn, thank you both so much. We're going to hand it over right now to
because people are
NBC's Lester Holt.
justifiably
He has a
angry.
special report.
It's like no matter what happens, it's a remnant.
Developing a plan of action to protect public safety. A court will return in just a minute. We were told the verdict would be read sometime between 4:30 and 5 Eastern time, so we're about to cross into that window.
What the fuck?
Let's bring in Gabe Gutierrez right now. Our correspondent has been covering this trial from the very beginning. Actually, we'll get to Gabe in a moment. We'll go to Danny Savalas right now.
Did they just leak it?
Attorney and NBC News legal analyst.
I think that's just a graphics package.
Right now.
I think that's just a graphics package.
Danny,
Hold on.
sitting
I think that's
with,
just a graphics package.
Your client right now facing these kinds
They
of
always
charges,
do these
the jury
tests,
is
and they
back after
accidentally leaked it, I
hours,
think.
Deliberations. What are you telling him?
I think that's just a graphics package.
I mean, a lot of times your client is incarcerated or in custody, so you mercifully aren't with them stressing out, waiting for the jury to come back. And with each passing hour, you try to check your emails, you try to return some phone calls, but it's hopeless. You just can't stop thinking about the trial and the verdict and what the jury is doing in there, especially if they're not sending out a lot of notes. It really is hard to divine what they're thinking about if they're not telling the judge with any notes for clarification. So none of us will ever know what they're saying in there, and none of us will ever find out.
Yeah, they definitely they have a graphic for all of them. I've talked about this before. Like they always do this on accident, and then people lose their fucking minds.
Very shortly, there will be a lot of shoulda, coulda, woulda. I would have done it this way. Ahead of the verdict right now, what stands out to you as a weakness or a missed opportunity on either side's presentation?
The prosecution really followed Prosecution 101. They called in a lot of experts on each issue. In a way, it was, what defense attorneys sometimes call in our jaded way prosecutorial overkill. But I don't blame them at all because they have the burden. They have the burden to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. So if I'm the prosecution, I'll bring in as many
All right,
experts
ex-cop Derek Chauvin is returning to the courthouse to hear the verdict at his murder trial in George Floyd's death. Ladies and gentlemen, this is breaking news from Associated Press. Derek Chauvin is on his way to the courthouse as of a minute ago.
To a video that we can all see. Well, the prosecution very cleverly brought them in to make
kind of wild that we are spending this much time on such a fucking open and shut case, and like we literally don't know which way the jury is going to go.
You had an MMA fighter who could opine almost like an expert himself. On the defense side, I mean, they stuck to the battle plan. They really attacked the two main pillars, the main themes we knew they would attack. Number one, causation. And that was that Derek Chauvin's knee in the back of the neck may have been mean. It may have been not very nice, not very polite, but it was not the cause of George Floyd's death. But causation being so tricky, that really delved into a lot of science and a lot of complicated things that jurors and lawyers alike were dealing with probably for the first time. And then, of course, they attacked the use of force, and they brought their own expert, the defense did, and they argued that, look, not only was this force not a felony, it was something that was accepted and taught. So it could not be an aggravated assault. It could not be something that was imminently dangerous because it was acceptable. And the defense would and did argue that all of the force, right up until they pulled George Floyd out and put him on the ground in the prone position, up until that moment,
we don't know how anti-cop the jury is. We don't know. You have no idea
whether or not the knee in the neck was the causative factor, the substantial causative factor in George Floyd's death. And we're going to find out in a minute if they got it right.
Danny, we'll invite you to stay with us. We may be in for a long afternoon, so thank you for being with us. Melissa Murray is an NBC News contributor and also a former law clerk to Judge Sonia Sotomayor. It's great to have you here. I want to talk about how this case has come to symbolize police use of force and racial tensions between communities and police. Unlike so many other cases, this wasn't about a split-second decision, a flash. It was a cell phone, or maybe it was a gun. This was 9.5 minutes. So should we be looking at this case in isolation as different from many others?
I don't know where to, like,
there do seem to be some idiosyncratic elements to this case that are very different.
Give me
from
the
ordinary
DocuSign
course of
thing
things.
if
As you
possible,
say,
and I'll sign
there
it.
wasn't necessarily this split-second
I already signed the hard copy of the
where a police officer may have misapprehended what a civilian was doing. For example, in the Mohammed Noor case, which happened also in Minnesota shortly before the George Floyd case happened. Again, a lot of these cases require split-second judgments. Policing is inherently dangerous, and all of those things may factor into a trial like this. But what seemed to be the case here, and the prosecution really hammered it home in their closing statement, was an officer who didn't seem to regard this individual who'd been detained as a human. He was dismissive of him, callous to him, picking out the rocks from the tire as he had his knee on his back. And, honestly, a missed opportunity, I think, for the defense was that Derek Chauvin really never showed any emotion during this trial. I mean, he was masked for most of it, but we never saw anything that looked like regret from him. And I think the jurors probably saw him just sort of staring with a kind of flat affect throughout much of this trial. And maybe, again, that would have had some kind of reflection or inflection point for them as well. But I think there are some missed opportunities here, but I also think this was a very sort of singular case.
Who murdered Philando.
And we'll be able to put it in greater perspective in the coming minutes as we await that jury to return to the Minneapolis courtroom and deliver their verdict. In the meantime, let's go to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez. He's been following this trial since the beginning last month. We talked to you about a half hour ago, and we're seeing a lot more people there. In anticipation. Describe the scene and what's about to happen there, Gabe.
Yeah, Lester, this crowd is growing by the second. You can see several people, several dozen people, perhaps several hundred now, yelling Black Lives Matter. And this is similar to the crowd that we've been seeing over the last couple of days. Peaceful protesters that were supporting George Floyd's family. But Lester, I want to set the scene a little bit here. If you look, this is the Hennepin County Government Center. This is the courthouse where this has all been happening. In the distance, you can see up there a military presence. Some members of the National Guard here, very tight security. This entire area has been fenced off since before this trial started. But Lester, we've been speaking with many of these protesters, and they said that, again, this has been a very difficult trial for them to watch, a very emotional trial for them to watch, a trial that has given them a lot of anxiety as they awaited this verdict. And just within the past few minutes of the announcement of the verdict being read, we saw this crowd gather here. There's a lot of media here as well, really from around the world, but also some folks that we did talk with from around the Midwest.
The other attorney, the original attorney was Geronimo Yanez's attorney.
What the verdict would be. So again, Lester, as we await the verdict, and it could come, any minute now.
The original attorney
this crowd has gathered here. It's now numbering several hundred. They have signs with Black Lives Matter. You have somebody on a loudspeaker right now saying "No justice, no peace." Again, this case really has come to be seen as putting the American policing system on trial, although inside that courthouse, the prosecution and the defense both say that this is about the actions of one police officer, the actions of Derek Chauvin. But these folks here see this as much more than that. They see this as one of the most important trials in recent memory. And again, they're gathering right here as we await this verdict. Lester?
Gabe, as we've been talking about, there are 3 charges: second-degree manslaughter, third-degrgy murder, second-degree unintentional murder. Do you get a sense from activists, from the crowds, what they would consider, I hate to use the term win, but that's all that comes to mind at this particular moment, or how the family views it?
I hear you have lost communication with you, but I can describe the scene right here. You see people holding their fists in the air. Again, this is a scene we've seen play out over and
highest
over
charge
again,
they can hit him with
throughout this
unintentional murder,
ever since George Floyd
which implies that there is
was killed
intent
last
to
May.
apply
A very emotional time for the folks
felony
here.
assault.
I'm going to send it back to you, Lester.
All right, Gabe, we'll get those communications issues worked out with you. Thank you. I want to go to Kristen Welker right now at the White House. The White House has made some planning for a reaction to this verdict, and the president himself has, in recent hours, commented on this case. Kristen, what can you tell us from there?
Well, Lester, let me set the scene for you at the White House right now. President Biden was about to start talking about his American jobs plan when it was announced that there is, in fact, a verdict. So those remarks have now been delayed as the president and this administration monitors these developments. As one White House official told me, they are watching and waiting along with the rest of the world. As you point out, President Biden and his top officials have been preparing for him to make some type of statement, remarks, reaction once there is a verdict. But earlier today, during an event, he was speaking and was asked about the trial, and he said that he prays that the jury reaches the right verdict. Now, those comments came under an immense amount of scrutiny. We asked the press secretary about it repeatedly. Was it appropriate for President Biden to weigh in on the verdict in that way before, in fact, the jury had come out and spoken? She denied that he was trying to put his finger on the scale. Instead, she noted that he had spoken to the family of George Floyd, that this was clearly an emotional time for them, for the rest of the country, and he was clearly echoing that. Now, taking a step back, Lester, we know that the administration has been in close contact with state and local officials. They are urging the public to remain calm once there is a verdict, that if there are protests, for them to be peaceful protests. And of course, that echoes what we are hearing from the family as well. We'll be watching closely to see what President Biden has to say when and if, in fact, he does speak publicly after there is a verdict. We know that the issue of criminal justice, of racial equality, has been one that he has spoken about quite extensively. And right now, the administration, from a legislative perspective, has been pushing for Congress to move forward with a bill titled the George Floyd bill, which would make it easier to prosecute police misconduct. So that is the scene here behind the scenes within the Biden administration as they watch and wait for a verdict. Lester?
Kristen, thank you. We are past 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, within the window now when we would expect to hear from the jury their verdict in the case of former officer Chauvin. While we await that verdict, let me bring in Eugene Robinson. He's a Washington Post columnist and NBC News political analyst. Eugene, always good to see you. This is a moment of deep breath for everyone. We're all emotionally tied to the story because we were witnesses to it, to the extent that we saw that videotape of George Floyd dying under the knee of a police officer. As we await this verdict on 3 charges, what, in your view, should we be keeping in mind? What's our deep breath? What should it look like right now?
Well, we should try to remember that this verdict will be about the specific officer and what he specifically did that day to George Floyd. That this is a micro situation with macro implications, with implications for the whole country, and for so many of us, for so many African American men, Lester, it's personal. It feels intensely personal. Could that have been me under Derek Chauvin's knee for 9 minutes and 29 seconds? Could it have been one of my sons who found himself in that situation? And so this case, it's not just that it has taken on an outsized importance. It really does symbolize so much about this country's 400-year struggle with race and this country's, frankly, refusal to sort of acknowledge and grapple with the concept and reality of systemic racism, especially in policing. And so we've been so many of these incidents and so many of these deaths, and frankly, we've seen so many verdicts go in favor of police officers who were acquitted. And there was a sense in this case, because it was 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and because the video went around the world, there was a sense that this is where we have to draw a line, that this has to be seen as unacceptable by everyone, regardless of race, whoever you are. You have to see this as having been unacceptable. So now the question is that the way the jury saw it? And will the jury, in essence, ratify what many of us all think we saw in that video, or will they take a different view? And what does that say to African Americans and to us personally about how we are seen in this country and how we are treated and how we are regarded? George Floyd was not treated like a citizen by Derek Chauvin. He wasn't treated like a member of the public that Derek Chauvin was sworn to protect. I think we could all agree on that. Yet that's what we're supposed to be, and that's what we have a right to be. And so, just an awful lot seems to hang on what these poor 12 people decide. My sympathies are with the jury because this has got to be difficult for them. And it's certainly got the rest of us on tenterhooks just waiting to hear. what they decided.
Yeah, they are sequestered, but they are certainly citizens of this country and this world, and certainly have to have some inkling, if not a lot of inkling, about the climate in this country. Eugene Robinson, thank you. Let me go back to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez. I understand our audio connection is back, and so Gabe, let me ask you about what will happen in the courtroom. The verdict will be read. What would you expect to see next?
Well, Lester, it's such a highly anticipated moment. The jury will be brought into the courtroom. The verdict will be read. They'll go through the three charges, as you've been discussing, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter, and a verdict will be read for each of those charges. Then, shortly after the jury is let go, we anticipate the Attorney General, Keith Ellison. He will be speaking publicly, and then sometime after that, we also expect to hear from the Floyd family. But what happens after that, of course, local authorities have been urging folks here to stay calm, as I was mentioning earlier, and we can see even a growing crowd here that has been gathering here right outside the courthouse. But again, just a few moments away potentially about hearing this verdict, something that has been so long awaited here in Minneapolis. But yes, we expect the verdict to be read. There's also the consideration of whether there will be aggravating factors in this case. In other words, bumping up any potential sentence. We don't expect sentencing to happen right away, but as has been discussed, Lester, each of these charges carries up to a certain amount based on if there are several aggravating factors. In this case, we're told that the judge will decide on those aggravating factors, but with a second-degree murder, the maximum penalty being 40 years in prison, with a third-degree murder maximum being 25, and then the maximum for second-degree manslaughter being 10 years. But the recommended sentencing for each of those charges, based on first-time offenders like Derek Chauvin would be, that is much shorter, 12 and a half years or so for the first two charges, second and third degree murder, and 4 years for second degree manslaughter. So there will still be those outstanding questions on exactly, what a potential sentence would be if there is a conviction. But many of these protesters...
Chad, he's a first-time offender in the sense that he was never convicted and found guilty. He was never charged and convicted of murder or any sort of thing. Having 18 infractions prior does not mean anything in the eyes of the law, specifically because, it could, depending on what the judge decides, but that's what they're saying. And that is literally why people are fucking protesting right now, as they are.
This is based on the window we've been given.
That's yet another instance of the criminal justice system being fundamentally broken.
Derek Chauvin case. Let me go to NBC correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. She's also in Minneapolis, covering the reaction in the city. You've been talking to some of the demonstrators, Megan. What are you hearing? What do they anticipate? What do they expect?
Yeah, Lester, we were out here yesterday when shortly after those closing arguments, hundreds of people filled the streets here in Minneapolis calling for justice for George Floyd. And we talked to people asking them, what does that look like for you? And it's a couple of things here. They say that they want to see a guilty verdict for Derek Chauvin, but they also want to see changes systemically to the way that police in our country. This is a deeply personal moment, a deeply personal trial for people all across the country, and we see that, and we have been seeing that with the diverse crowds of people that have come out and protest across the nation. We talked yesterday to people who flew in from different parts of the country, saying it was important for them to be here to show support to George Floyd's family. In fact, I had an opportunity to speak with them yesterday, asking them how they felt as we awaited the verdict. And they said that they're anxious. They're ready for this entire process to be over, but that they're very hopeful that Derek Chauvin will be found guilty. And they realized the magnitude,
I think I'm going to run the 1 minute ad now
of this case
before like 2 p.m. so that I don't have to run it again. I don't have to run it at 2 p.m. when the verdict is happening.
And they say if there is not justice for George Floyd, if there's not a conviction here,
okay, I'm running the ad now. If you no longer want to see the ads, you already know what to do. You can subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime.
Minneapolis remained peaceful.
By connecting your Amazon Prime to your Twitch account. Here's the ad.
Peaceful protests moving forward, but certainly hopeful that they will get the verdict that they are hoping for, Lester.
Megan Fitzgerald down there in Minneapolis watching the crowds. Thank you. NBC News legal analyst. Paul Butler is a former federal prosecutor and Georgetown School of Law professor. Paul, just give me your thoughts as we await this verdict.
So it's a relatively short deliberation process. It's hard to read anything into that. Typically, if it's a short deliberation, the conventional wisdom is that favors the defense. But in a case with this quality of evidence by the prosecution, I think all bets are off. We know that in the only other murder conviction of a police officer in Minnesota, that jury also deliberated the almost exact same amount of time, looking at the exact same charges, second degree and third degree murder and second degree manslaughter.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Let me bring in Mary Moriarty, a former chief public defender for Hennepin County, Minnesota. We thank you for being with us. Can you walk us through the process of how it will play out, the mechanics of the verdict, since you're obviously familiar with those courtrooms?
I can. The jury will be brought in when the judge is ready. And when they walk in, there will be one person who will have the jury verdict in their hand, and that's the person who will be the foreperson. And as a lawyer, you're always looking at that because you wonder who the foreperson will be. The judge will ask them if they have a verdict. The foreperson will say, we do. The judge's clerk will go get the verdict and hand it back to the judge. It can be the clerk, but it's probably going to be the judge who will actually read the verdict. And then the defense has the right to have the jury what is called polled. In other words, the judge will ask each individual juror if this is their true and correct verdict. He'll go down the line with numbers. They will all probably say yes. And then at that point, the judge has to make a decision if he's found guilty, if he's going to take Chauvin into custody because he is out on bail. On a presumptive prison case, he would be taken into custody. The state has asked for a sentence greater than the Minnesota sentencing guidelines. And so there will be Chauvin actually waived his right to have the jury make that decision about whether there are aggravating factors. He is allowing the judge to make that decision, but the judge has already said in a previous order that he will allow the lawyers to write memos on that issue to try to convince him what the appropriate sentence will be. So we won't see a sentencing today. That would probably be in a couple of weeks or however much time the judge gives the lawyers to write their memos.
All right. Thank you for that perspective, Mary. Eddie Glaude is an NBC News contributor and joins us now. Eddie, we're watching the crowd build, and as I've been saying from the beginning, these emotions have been high, and this was the first time we saw that tape, so today should be no different now as we await the verdict. But what should people know? And I asked this question to Eugene a moment ago.
Scheduling all the time.
We're in a deep breath moment now, waiting for this moment. What should we be thinking about?
The verdict is already the verdict.
Well, unlike what the prosecutors told the jury, this trial bears the burden of the nation's central contradiction, Lester. And so there is a sense in which America is on trial here. And, whether they come back with a guilty verdict for all three counts, or if they just simply convict on second-degree manslaughter. The latter, I think, will generate discomfort, a kind of, disappointment.
I'm
in some
fucking
ways.
muting this for now. Sorry, they're not saying it. This is just color commentary, right? Like, it's just everyone's talking about how America's on trial and shit. Let me just say something, okay? If America is on fucking trial, America has lost, all right? I'm sick and tired, and I've been, looking at CNN, looking at Jake Tapper, talking about, Jake Tapper talking about how, oh, my God, this is the rest of the world looks to the United States of America as a beacon of democracy and hope, or Don Lemon has been saying that. It's like, no, dude, that is delusional bullshit. Okay, let me tell you something. If America is on trial because of this, then it's not a good look, sweaty. Okay, we are not a beacon of democracy if we literally have to fight. If people have to storm the fucking streets to get a semblance of justice in an instance where 45 people literally physically documented a fucking police murder on an unarmed individual. And even after all of that, there's still people that are literally like, I don't know, maybe he deserved to die because he had taken fentanyl at some point in his life, or he had a fucking Percocet potentially that could have been in his blood flow for 24 fucking hours prior. So no. we are not a beacon of democracy. If anything, this trial and the fact that it takes this much effort to convict a murderous cop, and how unique it is for specifically the state of Minnesota, but also the entirety of the United States, how unique this is that a cop can kill someone with his fucking hands in front of 45 people, okay? In front of so many people, including minors, like little kids. Little 9-year-old kid was there, and he recognized what was going on. And yet there are still dense motherfuckers in this country that are so blinded by white supremacy that they cannot see what a 9-year-old boy could, okay? The fact that this is such a unique case that we don't even know if justice will be served, that this could be a precedent for future for police reform in some capacity, just to start police reform, implies that American democracy is not a beacon of prosperity and hope. Okay? So I'm sick and tired of mainstream media broadcasters looking at this instance and saying, wow, the rest of the world is looking at us right now for advice and guidance. It's like, no, dude, I really hope that the rest of the world is not looking at us for guidance, but I also know that the rest of the world, specifically like Western nations or even like just comparable OECD nations, are not looking to us on for guidance with respect to how America does policing.
Like I said, it's too much, but I know there's, and I'm not threatening when I say this, but I know there's going to be a problem if this verdict doesn't go the right way.
Racism is not over with a guilty verdict? No, even police practices are not reformed with a guilty verdict.
The justice that we're asking for.
The Floyd family has called for
the verdict
peace.
has been reached. We just don't know what it is.
Might be
We're
worried
currently
about exactly
awaiting
what might happen if this verdict doesn't go the right way.
We want peace too. That's what we wanted to begin with. If Chauvin would have been peaceful with the way he was policing, this wouldn't have happened. And I'm not advocating for burning everything down and, you know, whatever the rhetoric is, but
yes, the world is busy training their cops. That's literally not true.
The oppressed,
you are
right?
Straight up wrong.
So,
if anything, our police force and the kettling, corralling strategies and whatnot that we have learned in American police departments are literally a remnant of post 9/11 training that the American police departments got from the IDF. Okay, so a lot of the strategies that the American police apply right now as a normal part of their process is literally directly fucking taught in post 9/11, in the post 9/11 era for counterterrorism initiatives taught by the IDF.
Otherwise, it's just radio silence again.
What do you think this means again? You know, do you think policing in America? Do you think this trial will change anything? Do you think that there needs to be more police reform? Do you think that any meaningful change will happen in your view from this verdict?
I hope so. If we're able to look at the history of what policing is in America, it was never founded to support people that look like me. So there needs to be change. There needs to be an evolution, right? So we need to stop doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Thank you, man, for talking to us. We really appreciate you taking the time. So, Lester, her comments are something we've heard over and over again here. Just a very, you know, she said she was traumatized listening to this trial, had a very tough time listening to it. You see a frustration among many of the folks here wondering what the verdict will be. But, you know, I wanted to share her story with you because it is something we've heard over and over again, not just over the past couple of days, but really since the death of George Floyd last May. Lester.
And Gabe, thank you for sharing that interview. It was a good interview, and we appreciate it. I want to, first of all, let you know we are at 3:54 Central Time right now, near the end of the half hour in which we were told that we would be hearing the verdict. But as you know, things move on their own time, so we're not going anywhere. We'll continue to wait for that jury to return to the courtroom and the announcement of the verdict in the Derek Chauvin case. As we watch the crowd build in Minneapolis, let's take you all the way to the White House now. Kristen Welker is there. Kristen, they are watching all this very carefully there.
They are watching it very carefully, Lester.
I already ran the ad earlier.
I just spoke with a White House
official. Instead of running it at the top of the hour because I thought the verdict would come now, so don't worry about that for now. Why are you at 100 Thieves? Because I didn't realize that the verdict was going to come. I didn't realize the verdict was going to happen today. Okay, and I made this prior obligation a long time ago, thinking that we were gonna have a fun 420 like last year, where I would probably smoke a little bit of weed and play some fucking Uno. And when I realized that because of COVID restrictions, that I would not be able to leave the compound because once you get tested, you're not supposed to leave the compound. You have to stay there for the entire day because you might, like this is just a COVID restriction beyond like getting tested numerous times leading up to this event. I hit up the Cash App guys and I was like, I need to stream today. This is a very, very, very important verdict that I will definitely cover. So they were at least kind enough to allow me to stream as the event is going on. The event has already started. Everyone around me and the other side of the compound is literally fucking at this event, this Uno tournament. I'm going to have to go and play Uno, shut all of this off in my mind and play Uno in a little bit. It's just, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this, but I'm going to try my best, okay? But not in a little bit, at fucking 3 p.m.
He was echoing the emotions that go along with this trial. So the White House is watching and waiting to see what will happen along with the rest of the world. And Lester, I can tell you that top officials are huddled in their offices as they try to prepare to respond. Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker. So we'll monitor that front as well. I want to go to NBC's Tremaine Lee. He's been closely following the trial. He's in the Greenwood neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a traditionally black neighborhood there. Tremaine, great to have you on. You're in a place obviously steeped in African-American history. I want to run this past you. And I'm sure you've been part of these conversations. There is a sense among activists, among communities of color,
as soon as the tournament is over, I'll probably go back home and restart the stream as well.
And I'm wondering if you see a risk in that assumption, thinking that this one will be different.
Lester, you know what, folks in this community, especially as you mentioned, there's such a deep history in this Greenwood community. They dealt with the 1921 race massacre. Then in 2016, Terrence Crutcher was shot and killed by a police officer. It was on video. There is currently a bill working its way through the state legislature that will make it illegal to film police. So this idea of a wariness to get their hopes up, even in the face of what so many people believe is evidence that is clear and just crystal clear, right? So to your point there, they don't want to get their hopes up because black folks in this country haven't really experienced true justice. And so in this case, one way or the other, as I was speaking to a lawyer activist in Ferguson on my way to Tulsa, and he said, no matter what, America is not on trial. American racism is not on trial. Police aren't even on trial. This is the trial of Derek Chauvin. And so after the verdict is read, whether it's a guilty verdict or a non-guilty verdict, if policing doesn't change in this country, especially the way black bodies and black communities are policed, what difference will it make? So that wariness, that anxiety, that kind of tightening of the gut that so many people are feeling all across this country, a place like Greenwood, these residents know it more than most, Lester.
Yeah, Tremaine, thank you for joining us, and please stand by as we continue to wait for the verdict to be announced from Minneapolis. As we do that, we want to turn to criminal defense attorney and NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Danny, we talked earlier about, I called it the speed of the verdict. I think you countered that, they sometimes go this quickly. But does it tend to favor one side or the other?
Take all the conventional wisdom and courthouse gossip you may have heard about quick verdicts and throw it right out the window, Lester, because when it's a high-profile case, all the rules get scrapped. Nothing is what it normally seems. And in a case like this, where you already have complicated jury instructions for
the verdict has been reached already. They're just late in fucking revealing the verdict. Everybody shut up. It doesn't mean anything now.
Intentional act, but in this case, it is a conceitedly unintentional killing.
Late, it doesn't change anything. The verdict has been reached already. Okay.
A little with that.
What matters more is
the question of did they do one of two things?
What matters more is when the verdict was, how long it took the verdict to be reached, and it took 10 hours.
Or did they walk into the jury room and say, I don't think the defense had it at any point here? And, we may never know exactly how the discussions went down unless the jurors are willing to talk afterwards. But this short verdict does certainly suggest that the jurors didn't go through all of that detail, at least that the prosecution put up in that very effective grid, showing all of the elements, all of the information. That doesn't mean that they discounted it. They may have just felt the prosecution already made its case. Or on the other side, that the defense made a stronger case, or at least that they raised reasonable doubt. The defense never had to prove innocence. They just had to raise reasonable doubt by undercutting any of the framework of the prosecution's elements of the crimes.
They gave them kind of an a la carte menu, the idea that maybe he died from carbon monoxide poisoning from the car, that maybe his heart was enlarged, that the drugs affected things. Was that more or less than you would expect in a case like this in terms of things that the jury might be able to hang a reasonable doubt belief on?
That's right. I mean, those elements, so you had three major causative elements that the defense argued. Number one, that fentanyl levels were well above what studies show is a fatal dosage. I think he had his were at 11, and studies show that 3 is enough to kill with fentanyl. Methamphetamines were not at a fatal dosage, but combined with other things like his poor health, his obstructed arteries, and even his COVID diagnosis, and this is what the defense argued, could have caused the death. But in a
guys, it's just a defense's argument. Stop freaking out.
Defense, because in Minnesota, as long as the defendant set into motion the events that caused the death, that is enough for causation. In a way, it kind of inverts the burden and puts the burden on the defense to show that no matter how mean or nasty this knee was on the back of George Floyd's neck, it was not a substantial causative factor. The true substantial causative factor was that George Floyd's poor health combined with drug intake was the cause of his death. In a sense, the defense did have a burden here. They undertook a burden to prove their alternate theory, which was causation, and we're going to find out whether or not they met that burden. And of course, I use burden in air quotes because the burden always rests with the prosecution. It never shifts, and the defendant is supposedly cloaked in the presumption of innocence.
Yeah, the defense was talking about what a reasonable officer would do in this situation. That was a lot of part of their closing. Let me go, actually, let's just check where we are. We're a little after 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central Time. On the left of your screen, you're watching the crowd gathering near the courthouse. We were expecting to hear the verdict in the Derek Chauvin case. We still are. We were expecting to hear it in the last half hour, but we remain with you as the wheels of justice turn toward the verdict in this case. The jury formally deliberating a little over 10 hours before reaching their decision here early afternoon Minneapolis time, and we got the word that between 3:30 and 4 Central Time we would hear a verdict. But no doubt we are drawing close, and that crowd obviously waiting with anticipation and bated breath to know where this case will go. Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer, videotaped in that infamous tape that showed his knee on the neck of George Floyd for 9.5 minutes. The prosecution's case is that he died as a result of that pressure, essentially suffocated, asphyxiated by Derek Chauvin. Let's go to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez. He's outside the courthouse watching the crowds, and that's building a sense of certainly tension out there. Gabe?
Yeah, Lester, this crowd has been growing over the last hour or so, and as you can see behind me, they're gathered here holding up signs, chanting, throwing their support behind George Floyd's family and watching.
All right, the judge is in.
Front here of the Hennepin County Government Center. This is the courthouse where the verdict is expected.
Derek Chauvin is back in the court. Court proceedings are starting right now, boys.
In Minneapolis, and I've spoken with you, Philippe, many times since the death of George Floyd. And if you can put this into context.
Holy
for
fucking
viewers,
shit, dude.
How significant is this moment right now?
Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict. Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court File Number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April, 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19.
Let's go.
Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th
They
day
hit
of
him in
April
the
2021
with the hardest
at
one.
1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019. Members of the jury, I'm now going to ask you individually if these are your true and correct verdicts. Please respond yes or no. Juror number 2, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 19, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 27, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 44, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 52, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 55, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 79, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 85, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 89, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 91, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 92, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've said this already, but once again, the uncertainty that we all experienced here, the uncertainty that we all experienced here on this day, that a cop could fucking murder someone in broad daylight with his bare fucking hands, okay, in front of so many fucking people, filmed from numerous angles, where all of the people that were involved tried to stop him, where his own police chief said that this was unacceptable. Other members of law enforcement said this was unacceptable, and yet we still were genuinely worried that this motherfucker might not face justice. That uncertainty alone implies that America still has a very long way to go as far as reaching a actually just justice system. Okay, we're not even talking about racism. Okay, I'm not even getting to the fucking systemic discrimination within the criminal justice system.
1 week after that.
Okay, we're not even over there. We're not even there yet. Okay. Punishment is not justice. I've said this many times for the chatter who pointed that out. You know my point of view. I do not believe in draconian punitive measures. I think that that is a legitimate problem. Okay? There's a legitimate problem with American culture.
Is there a motion on behalf of
But this is accountability. This is bare minimum accountability.
Bail and remand him into custody, pending sentencing.
Bail is revoked, bond is discharged, and the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff. Anything further? All right. Thank you.
Yep. Going to jail, motherfucker.
We're adjourned.
Remember, this doesn't fucking bring George Floyd back. This doesn't, you know, this doesn't begin to address the horrible things that have happened. It's just a tiny first step. A tiny first fucking step towards a semblance of justice.
The courtroom in
or a little bit of accountability for in
Chauvin remanded
and
in the custody of the sheriff.
The state of, once again, I got to repeat myself, historic for the state of Minnesota, where a white cop for the first time ever has been criminally charged for the murder of a black person. Okay? First time.
The reaction can best be summarized by Bree Graham. She's the woman I spoke with just before this verdict was read, who told us that she had been traumatized watching this trial. Bree, what is your reaction? And when that verdict was read, what went through your head?
I honestly, I don't really have the words for it right now, and I'm trying to take everything in. And it feels like we can take the day to celebrate that we're finally getting a taste of justice. And then tomorrow we move on to Dante, and we keep doing this until they give us what we need across the board, you know?
Bree, a few moments ago, I saw you you started crying. It was emotional for not just you, but many folks here. Explain to me a little bit more about, what did you have doubts leading into this verdict? How much anticipation, how worried were you about this?
Of course I had doubts. We have doubts every time something happens. I mean, we have doubts when the police say that he's unarmed and, Adam Toledo had his hands up. We have doubts when they lie about what the cameras are. We always have doubts, and this was definitive and this was solidified, and we finally got the justice that we needed. People see it on the news and they don't understand, but living here and breathing this energy in every single day, it's so much, and it finally feels like the smoke has cleared just a tiny bit, enough just to take a deep breath,
Bree, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. You were telling me you're 31 years old. You've lived in Minneapolis for how long? 10 years?
Yeah, over 10 years in St. Paul and Minneapolis, and this is what I would call home. My friends are here, some of my most important families here.
Incredibly significant moment. I'm glad we were able to share this with you, Bree. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Yeah.
And again, we appreciate your time. Lester, what she told me is something we saw unfold here just within the last few minutes. If we can look around, this is the demonstrators that had gathered here. They all gathered close together to watch the verdict unfold live on their cell phones. And they all gathered in small groups, and some of the feeds came in just a few seconds before the others. Different people were yelling guilty on that first count. And then I think once the second and the third count came in guilty, there was just a wave that just rippled across this crowd. And I think if I could sum it up in one word, Lester, it is relief. Relief from a crowd that had been waiting for this verdict for months. Relief from a community that had seen razor wire and barricades and boarded up buildings just engulf downtown Minneapolis. Relief from people like Bree Graham, who did not know what would happen and who told us how this is something she'd been waiting for. And now the question becomes, is this just about George Floyd? What about Dante Wright? What about other police encounters that are still very much on the minds of the demonstrators here? But again, Lester, if I had to sum up what I just saw in the last few moments, it would be relief. Back to you.
Gabe, thank you for just joining us. Guilty on all counts against Derek Chauvin, who watched the jury or looked out toward the judge, his eyes darting, but a very serious, focused look as he heard those counts, all three verdicts read against him. And as we noted, he is now in the custody of the county sheriff there and will remain in custody pending his sentencing 8 weeks from now. Let's turn to criminal defense attorney and NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Danny, obviously a huge effort on the part of the prosecution in this case, more than 40 witnesses, and they were victorious today.
They were. And I'm sure that if you talk to any of the prosecutors moments before the verdict was read, none of them felt it was a sure thing. None of them felt they had a layup. None of them thought it was a slam dunk, and they shouldn't. I mean, because they always have the burden, the highest burden in our law, beyond a reasonable doubt. They know that it only takes one juror, and it only really takes reasonable doubt about a single element of a crime. So for that reason, that's why you saw so many witnesses paraded through. But the prosecution was very methodical. They had witnesses that went to the emotion of the jurors, witnesses that spoke to the science, that spoke to the use of force. And as we can see, that presentation was very effective, and possibly even that final rebuttal by the prosecution, which was a little more passionate and ended with that memorable line about Derek Chauvin's heart being too small. Not that George Floyd's heart was too large, Derek Chauvin's heart too small. Might have left a real mark on the jury as they went into deliberations. They might have been thinking about that throughout their relatively short deliberations.
I can't believe motherfuckers are angry already on Twitter. Like dudes are really, Ben Shapiro is really on fucking Twitter right now, upset that a murderer cop like for the first time in fucking Minnesota history, was convicted guilty of murdering a black person, and this motherfucker's already upset. Like, dude, these people are such fucking clowns, dude. I just like, I wasn't gonna look for malding. I wasn't gonna look for fucking gray name takes, but it is so incredible. I'm gonna ratio this piece of shit, dude. Fucking asshole. I'll report you for self-harm for watching Shapipi's tweets. I just don't understand how you can be this fucking person. I don't understand how you can look to an instance where, like, you're supposed to uphold the criminal justice system, and, like, you're still looking for some shit. You're still looking for an opportunity. Do you think he'll ever read that? Oh, no, Ben does read the tweets in response to him. He's just, he 100% sees that shit. It's just that, it is wild, dude. Absolutely fucking wild. Absolutely wild to me that he sees an instance like, I mean, you're so horny. You are so fucking horny. How horny can you get to see black people fucking suffer, dude? That, like, the one instance where, like, it's so open and cut, and the justice system, in all of its endless sea of inequalities and unjust actions, turns around and, like, arrives at the fucking correct verdict, and he's still upset. Like, still upset. And don't forget, this is just one case, guys. This is one case. Think about all of the endless instances where the countless times where black people get fucking killed and it's not on camera, or the body camera footage is erased, or the body camera footage, there is no body camera footage to begin with because the leading officer in the case will just be like, turn off your fucking body camera before you do anything. Like, for justice to be served in this instance, it took numerous people trying to interfere. It took countless amounts of actual on the ground first-hand account eyewitnesses. Breonna Taylor never got justice. You know what I mean? And ultimately, it's not like George Floyd got justice either, because there is no justice when George Floyd is dead. Like, what is the fucking justice? It's not like he can get unmurdered. This is not justice. This is accountability. What happens next will be justice, depending on what happens next, depending on what comes after this. Then it could start to be justice. But we're not at justice yet. We're at accountability, okay? Steven Crowder is worried that police are going to quit the force. Expect more police to quit in the coming weeks. Motherfucker, if cops are quitting because they can't do murder, like brutal murder with their hands, then, like, those cops literally should not be on the police force. Like, good. murder with their bare hands. Why are you upset? There you go. Fuck you, Steven Crowder, you little bitch. Like, can you imagine? Can you fucking imagine? Can you fucking imagine looking at a situation like this and being like, the mob led by Democrats at the highest level successfully initiated the jury into getting the result they wanted before the trial started? Yeah, I'm not even touching Matt Walsh. Fuck that guy. He does not deserve. Look, Ben Shabibo is one thing. His fucking minions, I'm not going to waste time with. Like, motherfuckers in here don't even need to know. Like, these people should be embarrassed to have these opinions. They should be embarrassed or scared to be able to say things like this in public. Ben is always on the wrong side of history. Ahead of the trial for the murder of George Floyd, Ben Shapiro defends Derek Chauvin at length.
Also, the city of Minneapolis, they just backed off of a plan. They had an actual plan to hire social media influencers to combat misinformation during the Derek Chauvin trial. The reason for this, of course, is because we have seen many instances over the past year in which there will be rumors that go around about a particular incident involving police that are just not true, and people then riot based on those rumors. So we have seen that many times over the course of the last year, where there will be a text that goes out that somebody was shot unarmed, and it turns out not only were they not unarmed, they were threatening the police, but a riot starts anyway, because the facts do not matter in these particular cases. Now, the reason I bring this up is because it is a very bad situation. We are in a very bad situation in our country when only a verdict that a particular side of the political aisle likes results in peace, right? In other words, if Derek Chauvin gets convicted of second-degree murder, which I think is an overcharge, legally speaking, this looks more like third-degree murder to me, if that at all, right? Like, there's a better case for excessive force than either of those two. Frankly, I think that Chauvin has a fairly strong defense here. I mean, just on a legal level, put aside the morality of what Derek Chauvin did, Chauvin on a legal level is going to have a fairly strong defense here. And I'm just warning people about this right now, because the way the media are going to portray this is if Derek Chauvin gets off, then it's going to be because the system failed and your eyes are, you can trust your eyes when you watch that tape, but you can't trust the system.
Listen, this is before the trial, but the other thing I was going to say is, I'm fucking tweeting this too, so I'm sorry, spoiler alert, but conservatives should be embarrassed right now to look defeated in this moment. You know what I mean? Like, you can be a conservative and think that Derek Chauvin is a murderer. Like, I will literally say you can be a conservative and think that Derek Chauvin was a murderer. There are even conservatives who think Derek Chauvin is a murderer. I mean, fucking Pat Robertson was literally saying Derek Chauvin is bad. Now, obviously, the reasoning behind why he was saying that Derek Chauvin is bad was because he thought that, you know, it was riling up the blacks too much. But, you know, even when that motherfucker is on George Floyd's side, then holy shit, like, you should literally feel embarrassed or scared to openly admit your disdain or to look defeated in this moment. You should be embarrassed to look defeated in this moment, but some don't even have the decency to hide their disdain. Like, they are literally straight up, like, Ben Shabibo, Steven Crowder, motherfuckers, they don't even care. Like, they're just straight up like, I am upset. I am upset that a white cop murdered a black person, okay, and couldn't get away with it. I am mad. Like, what the fuck?
Derek Chauvin's defense is pretty straightforward here. His defense is going to be that George Floyd had enough fentanyl in him to kill a horse. Okay, that is going to be his claim. And there's going to be fairly good evidence for that. There was a medical autopsy done after George Floyd died. The medical examiner said explicitly that if George Floyd had been found dead in his house with that level of fentanyl in his blood, then he would have immediately declared it a drug overdose.
This is not even true, but
the medical examiner in that particular case
wrong
struggled to find evidence that the knee on the neck of George Floyd is what actually caused his death.
Wrong.
There's good video evidence from before the actual 8-minute clip that everybody has seen that George Floyd was acting in extraordinarily erratic ways, that he was resisting arrest, that he
does not matter
appeared to be suffering from a condition that is known in the police community as excited delirium, where people are high on drugs and then their heart rate starts to rise extremely fast. They start to act very, very erratic. And then if they have underlying health conditions in any way, then in certain instances, they die of that underlying health condition. The Minneapolis statutes with regard to police use of force do allow the kind of hold that Chauvin was using on George Floyd. George Floyd explicitly.
Also, the GG's. Wow. I think that's a bingo. I guess we could continue, but basically every part of this is just wrong. This is all before, by the way, just for the record.
Asked not to be put in the car. They tried to push George Floyd into the car. He said he wanted the windows open. They opened the windows for him. He then pushed his way out of the car. And then he said he wanted to be outside the car, at which point they held him down. And again, just medically speaking, if somebody says that they cannot breathe, if you can say that you can't breathe, that typically means that you can actually breathe. Right? What that means.
Literally wrong. Straight up wrong. That's not the truth at all. Holy shit. I am glad that Harvard-educated lawyer Ben Shabibo decided to not become a fucking trial lawyer and instead became a fucking charlatan grifter for the right, because turns out, like, what do you mean medically speaking? I want to understand, like, does Ben Shabibo believe that because his wife is a doctor that he, by osmosis, kind of like, not dissimilar to Donald Trump, whose uncle was in MIT, understands the medical profession quite well? My wife is a doctor, after all. Therefore, I have the medical proficiency to speak as an expert on this regard. And no one can speak while they're being choked. This is the case. For example, if you're being waterboarded and you start making noises, that means you're technically not being waterboarded, medically speaking. This was all before the trial, I believe. So that's why he's like wrong on every fucking count. Medically speaking, if your wife's P word is wet, then you need a mop, and it is a medical disability.
Medically speaking, is that you're having a heart condition. Right? Very often when someone says they can't breathe, that is not because you are having a closure of the trachea, right? It's not about your neck being in some way pressured, right? There's no damage that was actually done to George Floyd's neck in the autopsy. So again, all of this is going to be what the defense is for Derek Chauvin, and they have to prove some level of intent by Chauvin, which is going to be super difficult. Right? The notion that you can say that this police officer came to kill that day, right, which is kind of what you have to say in a second-degree murder trial. First degree, like he fully intended to kill him, he wanted to do it. Second degree is reckless disregard, that he did it knowing that George Floyd might die. That's going to be hard to prove. Again, if they really wanted to get Chauvin, the best they could have done here, I think, is probably an excessive force charge. Now,
Oh, that's really interesting. I too love watching Ben Shapiro, so I can be wrong on all accounts.
Maybe because of all the hubbub surrounding the trial, the jury decides to convict anyway because they don't want.
Like, dude, I mean, honestly, let me do this to Ben. Like, let me do what fucking Chauvin did to George Floyd to Ben Shabibo, if it's not like a serious thing. But here's the reality. If I were to say this out loud, like, motherfuckers could literally be like, he's threatening to harm me physically. Oh, okay, so you understand that it's like literally a felony level aggravated assault where you could end up murdering someone if you were to do that. You know what I mean? That's the inherent irony in how conservatives operate. Like, that's precisely why when Steven fucking Crowder, that asshole who turned around and tried to recreate the murder of George Floyd, the reckless disregard that they have for Black lives, by the way, holy shit. They're like taking it one step beyond murder porn and literally fucking reenacting the murder porn. When Steven Crowder was doing that, he didn't actually do the exact same thing that happened, right? He didn't. The reason why he couldn't do that is because he knows that if he were to do that, he could have fucking died, okay? Twitch posted, death of black people at the hands of the police has been an ever-present issue in American history. The events surrounding this recent trial are a grim reminder of how far we as a society still have to go for basic humanity of others to be valued and treated as sacred. Jesus Christ. Okay, Twitch. Good shit, Twitch. Oh, Keith Ellison is speaking now. I love Keith Ellison. We are waiting on Keith Ellison to speak now.
What's just happened, again, the three
Sorry.
In all counts against Derek Chauvin, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter.
I just blasted people's eardrums. I'm sorry.
Into custody while he awaits sentencing 8 weeks from now. The crowd largely constrained, subdued in many ways, and certainly showing a sense of relief and satisfaction that the system worked in their opinion in this case.
I apologize.
All hoping, of course, that this will be a peaceful evening ahead as this verdict is absorbed and this city that has been so emotionally wrenched over the last year begins to find its footing amid all this. And here's a picture outside the scene. I guess we can call it the crime scene now. This is where George Floyd took his last breaths on this corner under the knee of former officer Derek Chauvin. We saw many pictures of many angles of this intersection, both police body cams, a security camera across the street, even cameras from the convenience store across the street where George Floyd had visited before his fatal encounter with police. There's a memorial at this site that has been ongoing since after his death, and you can see now people arriving at the scene to pay their respects and to remember all of what happened and what has just happened in all of this. Let me go to NBC correspondent Megan Fitzgerald. Sorry, Megan, before we go to you, I understand we had pictures, we had some sound actually from George Floyd's brother reacting to this. Do we have that?
We're here in the family room, and we're going to have a press conference soon. But we just broke down in tears because, all of the work and pain down through the years, all the families, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend is here, and we're going to talk later. But Rodney Floyd, his brother's here. Philonis is on his way from the courthouse. This is a monumental only around. The war's not over. We've got a funeral in 2 days. We've got Eric Garner that never got this. We've got Breonna Taylor never got this. But God brought us through. And the first thing we're going to do with the press conference is have prayer and thank God. Rodney, just tell him how you felt. I know you were crying like I was crying.
Yes. I mean, I'm feeling tears of joy, so emotional that no family in history ever got this far. We was able to get a guilty charge on all accounts. We got a chance to go to trial, and they took it all away. So this right here is for everyone that been in this situation, everybody. We are here. We stand in a unit. Thank you, Brother Sharpton, for being right here with us from the very first day until the last. I know we're not done yet. I love it.
God bless you.
That's Rodney Floyd along with Reverend Al Sharpton. His first reaction after that guilty verdict delivered by a Minneapolis jury today as we again look at the scene. The crowd gathered at that scene where George Floyd took his final breaths. NBC correspondent Megan Fitzgerald is back in downtown Minneapolis for us, giving us a sense of the scene there. Megan?
Yeah, Lester, just seeing those moments there of Rodney Floyd reacting to this verdict, like I was saying, I had a chance to speak with the family yesterday, and they said this is what they've been praying for. And when you really just break it down and think about it, they had to relive the moment that their brother, as they say, was just executed in the street. So this is incredibly traumatic for the family. And then I also talked to them a little bit about the trauma that was felt throughout the country, and they understood that. They understood that this case here was very personal, deeply personal for the entire country. And we see that with the protests that have broken out all across the country of people of all races and nationalities. And so just behind me here, down below, we can hear the honking. We can hear the chants of justice. George Floyd, the crowd has said on several occasions. There is a sense of relief here. And we've been reporting about the tension, about the buildings that have been boarded up, about the anxiety that was mounting in this town as they were awaiting for this verdict. So it's certainly a sigh of relief. It's a moment of hope. I've been texting with people that we met yesterday, many protesters who say a weight has been lifted off of their shoulders. They feel more optimistic that the country is heading in the right direction, that a Black person killed at the hands of law enforcement has an opportunity to get justice. And so a lot of hopeful feelings here, Lester. with protesters that are on the ground.
Megan, thank you. As we continue to see the different shots of folks now waving flags and reacting.
The prosecutor's podcast estimated 12.5 years sentencing and found guilty on all 3 counts, primarily due to him being a first-time offender. Yeah, I don't know if the judge will throw the book at him. The aggravating factors there are.
You know, just seeing Rodney Floyd said it all. That family never gave up, and they know that this verdict will never bring.
Bro, fucking Amy Klobuchar literally speaking out on this is so stupid because she literally defended brutal cops in Minneapolis. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what the fuck? Dude, this is... No, actually, no, it's perfect. This is perfect for the American criminal justice system and American media when, like, not a single person... Oh, shit. What the fuck? What just happened? Oh, no, I think I might have hit the fucking... Ah! Hold on. I lost my webcam. Hold on. I think I...
Reverend Al and others have talked about the cases that have not been solved. No one was held in account for her death, and that list goes on and on. What should the takeaway be, at least from this case, in terms of the criminal justice system?
Lester, this is the call for action. This jury did the right thing here, but there's so many cases across the country, and to me, the Senate can't wait anymore. We have to pass police reform, the George Floyd bill. We have to pass police reform and ban chokeholds, and there are so many things that we could do, and Senator Booker is leading this effort in the Senate and doing an incredible job.
Hold on a moment, guys.
I hope my colleagues see this as a beginning.
One second.
It's the beginning.
Senator, great to talk to you. We see the prosecution team here. Mr. Ellison, who you noted, is here as well. So let's listen in.
Thank you.
More room.
Yeah, Marie. There's more room on this side?
Yeah, more room. Sorry about that. Can you see everybody? Yes, thank you. That's much better. So Natasha, people got to be able to see the baby too.
Especially with the baby brand here, right?
Yeah. Baby on board. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Ellison. I'm the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. And since the investigation and prosecution of this case began last May, everyone involved has pursued one goal: justice. We pursued justice wherever it led. When I became the lead prosecutor for the case, I asked for time and patience to review the facts, gather evidence, and prosecute for the murder of George Floyd to the fullest extent the law allowed. I want to thank the community for giving us that time and allowing us to do our work. That long, hard, painstaking work has culminated today. I would not call today's verdict justice, however, because justice implies true restoration. But it is accountability, which is the first step towards justice. And now the cause of justice is in your hands. And when I say your hands, I mean the hands of the people of the United States. George Floyd mattered. He was loved by his family and his friends. His death shocked the conscience of our community, our country, the whole world. He was loved by his family and friends. But that isn't why he mattered. He mattered because he was a human being. And there is no way we can turn away from that reality. The people who stopped and raised their voices on May 25th, 2020, were a bouquet of humanity, a phrase I stole from my friend Jerry Blackwell. A bouquet of humanity, old, young, men and women, black and white, a man from the neighborhood just walking to get a drink, a child going to buy a snack with her cousin, an off-duty firefighter on her way to a community garden, brave young women, teenagers, who press record on their cell phone.
Is Nancy Pelosi fucking joking?
Why did they stop? They didn't know George Floyd. They didn't know he had a beautiful family. They didn't know he had been a great athlete. And they didn't know he was a proud father, or that he had people in his life who loved him. I'll show you what she said in a second. They stopped and raised their voices, and they even challenged authority because they saw his humanity. They stopped and they raised their voices because they knew that what they were seeing was wrong. They didn't need to be medical professionals or experts in the use of force. They knew it was wrong, and they were right. These community members, this bouquet of humanity, did it again in this trial. They performed simple yet profound acts of courage. They told the truth, and they told the whole world the truth about what they saw. They were vindicated by the chief of police, by Minneapolis' longest serving police officer, and by many other police officers who stepped up and testified as to what they saw and to what they knew. What happened on that street was wrong.
Once this is over, I'll show you the Nancy Pelosi tweet. Hold on.
And we owe our gratitude.
Or not a tweet, but her statement at a presser.
We owe them our gratitude for fulfilling their civic duty and for their courage in telling the truth. To countless people in Minnesota and across the United States who joined them in peacefully demanding justice for George Floyd, we say, all of us, thank you. In the coming days, more may seek to express themselves again through petition and demonstration. I urge everyone to honor the legacy of George Floyd by doing so calmly, legally, and peacefully. I urge everyone to continue the journey to transformation and justice. It's in your hands now. I also want to address the Floyd family, if I may. Over the last year, the family of George Floyd had to relive again and again the worst day of their lives when they lost their brother, their father, their friend. I'm profoundly grateful to them for giving us the time we needed to prosecute this case. They have shown the world what grace and class and courage really look like. Although a verdict alone cannot end their pain, I hope it's another step on the long path toward healing for them. There's no replacing your beloved Perry, or Floyd, as his friends called him, but he is the one who sparked a worldwide movement, and that's important. We owe our thanks to the men and women of the jury who gave many hours of their time and attention to carefully listening to the evidence, weighing the facts, rendering a verdict. They are regular people from all walks of life, a lot like that bouquet of humanity on that corner on May 25th and in that courtroom. They answered the call, and they served in a landmark trial. They now deserve to return to their lives. If they ask you to respect their privacy, we ask you to honor that request. I want to acknowledge the remarkable team that helped us prosecute the case. We put everything we had into this prosecution. We presented the best case that we could, and the jury heard us, and we're grateful for that. We had the sole burden of proof in the case, and history shows that winning cases like these can be difficult. I'm proud of every hour, every minute, and every ounce of effort we put in this case. And let me tell you, we spent many hours working on this case, did we not? We, week after week, committee meeting after committee meeting, this team never let up and it never quit. We fought every day, and we did it together. The Attorney General's office together with the Hennepin County Attorney's office. Thank you, sir. And we did it together. I'm deeply grateful to everyone who worked on the case. Most of these folks will tell you it's a bad idea to put together a team of all Michael Jordans. Nobody would want to pass the ball. This team, that was their true strength, is sharing the load, passing the ball, understanding that all of us together are smarter than any one of us alone. And that worked. Although the verdict has been rendered, this is not the end. In the coming weeks, the court will determine sentencing, and later this summer, we expect to present another case. We will not be talking about that. This verdict reminds us how hard it is to make enduring change. And I just want to finish by sharing some important historical legacy, if you allow me. In 1968, the Kerner Commission was formed to investigate the causes of uprisings across major American cities. and a man named Dr. Kenneth Clark, a famous African-American psychologist who, along with his equally accomplished psychologist wife, Mamie, contributed to compelling research in the Brown versus Board of Education case. And Dr. Clark testified at the Kerner Commission. And I want to quote you what he said. I read that report, the one in the 1919 riot in Chicago, and it was as if I were reading the report of investigating the committee of the Harlem riot in 1935, the report on investigating the Harlem riot in 1943, and the report of the McCone Commission on the Watts riot. I must say again in candor to you, the members of this commission, it's like a kind of an Alice in Wonderland with the same moving picture reshown over and over again, the same analysis, the same recommendation, and the same inaction. Those are the words of Dr. Clark in 1968. Here we are in 1920.
I don't want to stop the fucking
2020, 2021. Here we are in 2021.
I don't want to stop
still addressing the same problem.
The take from.
Since Dr. Clark testified, we have seen Rodney King, Abner Louima, Oscar Grant, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland.
We're gonna listen
Philando
to Keith Ellison
Castillo,
first.
Laquan McDonald, Stephon Clark, Atiana Jefferson, Anton Black, Breonna Taylor, and now Dante Wright and Adam Toledo. This has to end. We need true justice. That's not one case. That is a social transformation that says that nobody's beneath the law and no one is above it. This verdict reminds us that we must make enduring, systemic, societal change. More than a month ago, months before George Floyd was murdered, the Minnesota Public Safety Commissioner John Harrington and I released the recommendations of our working group on reducing deadly force encounters with law enforcement. What all of us in that working group, including law enforcement, wanted is for everyone to go home safe. Anytime someone doesn't, everyone's lives are changed forever. We need to use this verdict as an inflection point. What if we just prevented the problem instead of having to try these cases? We don't want any more community members dying at the hands of law enforcement and their families' lives ruined. We don't want any more law enforcement members having to face criminal charges and their families' lives ruined. We don't want any more communities torn apart. One way to prevent this.
If you want to see the Nancy Pelosi quote, just look at my Twitter. I posted it on my Twitter or retweeted it.
The use of force.
I'm gonna show you the video in a little bit.
Subtle assumptions. I'm so proud of Chief Arredondo and the Minneapolis police officers who, by their testimony, said enough is enough. And another way to prevent it is by acknowledging and lifting up everyone's humanity, helping communities heal, and officers be well. Another way to prevent it is with accountability. Passing laws and instituting policies and training is important, but they must be more than words on paper, and there must be accountability for violating them. With this verdict, we have brought some accountability. Finally, this verdict demands us to never give up the hope that we can make enduring change. Generations of people said slavery would never end. Generations said Jim Crow would never end. Generations said women would never be equal to men. Generations said if you were different in any way, you could never be a full and equal member of our society. Today, we have to end this travesty of recurring, enduring deaths at the hands of law enforcement. Those beliefs are things we have to focus our attention on. And as I now do close, I just want to say to you, the work of our generation is to put unaccountable law enforcement behind us. It's time to transform the relationship between community and the people who are sworn to protect them from one that is mistrustful, suspicious, and in some cases terrifying, into one that is empathetic, compassionate, and affirming. That will benefit everyone, including police officers who deserve to serve in a profession that is honored, in departments where they don't have to worry about colleagues who don't follow the rules. Now that work is in your hands. The work of our generation is to put an end to the vestiges of Jim Crow and the centuries of trauma and finally put an end to racism. We can end it. It doesn't have to be with us into the future if we decide now to have true liberty and justice for all. The work of our generation is to say goodbye to old practices that don't serve us anymore and to put them all behind us. One conviction, even one like this one can create a powerful new opening to shed old practices and reset relationships. So with that, I just want to say that I do hope that people step forward and understand that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. You can do something the way like everyday people like Donald Williams and Genevieve Hanson and Christopher Martin and Charles McMillan and all those teenagers and young people stepped up and did something. You can do things like help pass the George Floyd Justice and Accountability Act. It's in your hands. Let's get the work done. And now I'd like to invite my friend and partner in justice, Michael Freeman, Hennepin County Attorney.
We've been listening to Keith Ellison. He's the Minnesota Attorney General, along with standing there along with the prosecution team.
All right, I'll show you what the fuck Pelosi said. I mean, leave it up to out of touch Democrats or people like Nancy Pelosi to just like drop a fucking dime, just the absolute flaming take.
So again, thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that?
And if you can't hear what she's saying at the presser, I will just read it out to you. Oh, here, there's a better video.
Your life for justice. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world.
Bro, it's like bad if you just say, thank you, George Floyd, for being murdered, right? Like, that's bad enough. But then she's like, thank God you, like, also called out for your mom. Like, it's so fucking bad, dude. Like, what kind of soulless vampire shit is this, dude? How are you so bad at this? I just don't understand. If you've been a politician for this long, you should know how to fucking fake it. You should literally know how to fake it at this point. Like, it's clear to me that she doesn't give a fuck, okay? But my God, dude. I mean, look, is this? I tweeted this, and I guess Jordan tweeted it as well. But like, listen, that presser is this, okay? It's got real fucking I'm a white person wearing the kente cloth energy all over that shit.
Who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice. Thank you, George Floyd.
I can't think of a mathematically worse way of saying that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there are worse ways of saying that. Actually, I don't know. Hey, kind of tight that you died. Like, whatever, dude. Like, justice is fucking served, dude. You died to fucking end racism, dude. Thanks, George Floyd. We got a W in the court case. Every part of this, from the tone of her voice, like the way she's delivering it, it's just so bad. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, because you and your thousands of millions of people around the world came out for justice. Your name will always be synonymous with justice. I don't know. I feel like if it were up to him or his family, like, they probably wouldn't want him dead. I'm just saying, like... She celebrated 420 today and then had to do a pressy. Yeah, I maybe. Worth 100 million, by the way. Yeah, of course. She's a fucking hard worker, dude. She deserves it, brother. You don't understand. Anyway, let's go back to fucking Greg Gutfeld now, who is so like it's hard for the poor conservatives. My heart aches for the conservatives that are out and about, you know, trying desperately to find an acceptable way of, you know, looking disappointed with this trial that will not immediately scream that they're basically saying the N-word, okay? Like, that's what the fuck they are looking for right now. They're looking for a way that they can, like, kind of say, like, oh, man, justice really wasn't served. It's not easy. It's not easy to do that, okay? It's not easy to do that. So my heart goes out to them. Like, they are the real victims in this situation, obviously. The ones who are still trying to, you know, be as racist as possible in an instance where, you know, justice was, like, seemingly served, you know? So Greg decided to hit the angle of, instead of just straight up saying it, you know what I mean? He hit the angle of, like, here, I'll just leave it up to Greg to mention it, okay?
And now I'm going to just get really selfish. I'm glad that he was found guilty on all charges. Yeah. Even if he might not be guilty of all charges. Oh, my God. I am glad that he is guilty of all charges because I want a verdict that keeps this country from going up in flames.
Bro, when you got other Fox News commentators audibly groaning at your take, like, there's another Fox News commentator in the room who's like, oh, come on, Greg. Like it is so fucking bad. What a loser, dude.
Oh, my goodness.
No. Like, even the other hosts are like, come on. What the fuck?
Oh, my goodness.
No. What do you mean?
Look, Greg.
Dude, you can't be to the right on Judge Jeanine motherfucking Perot, okay? She is a psychopath. She is literally a psychopath. You got Judge Jeanine Perot groaning, dude. This person literally was banned from Fox News, like, for just refusing to admit that Donald Trump lost the presidency. Like, this person low-key was, like, shelved. Her programming was shelved for a while because she was so fucking psychotic that even Fox News was like, dude, you can't. Like, you can't keep being this, like, Dominion software freak. You're not the Mike Pillow, CEO of Mike Pillow broadcaster. You can't do that. That's like Newsmax shit. Like, we can't do that at Fox News. That person is like, keep listening.
What do you mean? No, I'm at least being honest. My neighborhood was looted.
Greg,
I don't ever want to go through that again.
We do not sacrifice individuals for the sake
I'm saying he's guilty. I'm saying I'm glad.
No, Judge Jeanine Perot is saying the woman doubled down repeatedly saying that Muslims can exist. No. I'm almost certain that she turned around and was like saying, no, this is an open and shut case. Like, the Judge Jeanine Perot, I'm pretty sure, said in this instance that it was open and shut. No? Chauvin is the 8th officer convicted of murder since 2005 of over 16,000 killings. Yeah, Judge Jeanine Perot said this. That's why I'm saying this. She said this about the case.
Guilty. And right at around 5:02, they read the verdict guilty on all counts. And get your reaction to that.
Well, clearly the verdict is supported by the facts. This case was extremely unusual. I've tried many murder cases, and I sat as a judge on murder cases. It is rare that you even get a picture of the victim in a murder case, other than maybe an autopsy photo. But here, We had a living, breathing person that the jury was able to relate to every day, day after day, watching the trauma of what he went through, begging for air, begging to breathe. This was...
By the way, this is fucking Judge Jeanine Pirro, motherfucker. Like, listen. We're talking about, again, Judge Jeanine Pirro. I need you to understand. This is why I was saying, like, this is so psychotic. Like, this case was so open and shut that, like, even conservatives are like, come on. She's not fucking based, okay? Stop saying based about Judge Jeanine Pirro. I have to pee so bad. Oh, my God.
Was an emotional as well as an intellectual decision.
No, she's not a good person. This person was literally secretly suspended off of Fox News for engaging in the most psychotic conspiracy theories revolving around the election.
Make no mistake, the facts are solid on this verdict. This verdict will be upheld on appeal. But right now, what people need to understand is that the American justice system works. It works.
Yo, some people in my chat literally are like, wow, murder is bad? Wow, conservative commentator said murder is bad? Fucking based, bro. Sick, dude. Like, yo, where is the bar, guys? Is the bar under the fucking ground? Just set a little bit of a higher expectation for your fellow human beings. You know what I mean?
That people believe in Lady Justice, that if we give it a chance, it can work. And for all those people who want to burn down streets, just let the court do its job, and it will survive.
We'll get more reaction from the panel in a moment. I do want to point out that the family of George Floyd.
Anyway, the bar is in the Mariana Trench, dude. That's where the fucking bar is for conservatives. Our expectations of conservatives. It's literally in the deepest point of the planet. The bar is sunk so low it like came out from the other side. Okay, it's in China. Just kidding. The Earth is flat. I was just testing you guys. Okay. China. All right. Speaking of tests or bars being low, I don't know why. That's not a good fucking segue, but it's top of the hour, boys. It's top of the hour. Every hour. You already know what the deal is. We have a 60-second ad break. I'm going to hit that ad break right now while we continue the broadcast. If you no longer want to see the ads, if you want an ad-free broadcasting experience, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do it for $5. Or you can do it for free by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get one free Prime subscription a month. You can use your Twitch Primes here if you'd like. Or also, you can use ad block as well if it works. Most of them don't, but, you know. Go ahead. Later in the evening, I will be... Biden is going to be addressing the country later this evening. Also, here, let me run the ad real quick, though. 1 second. Let me run the ad. The thing I was going to say is I am going to eventually play Uno with the rest of the influencers that are here in the Cash App compound currently. I will, when they tell me, you know, that my time is up, that I have to go, I'm going to raid the Cash App stream that's going on currently. If you want to go watch that, you can do that as well. And then afterwards, after I'm done with the Uno tournament, I will come back. Okay? I will come back, not here, but back at home and restart my broadcast. Okay? Or I'll host them. Like, not raid them, but I'll host them. Okay? So you can stay here if you'd like in the chat and chat about within the community. But I will be back. I will be back later. No role play for the time being, boys, okay? No role play for the time being. We are not going to be able to do role play for the time being. I have to do this and a bunch of other stuff. Wait, there's a second Gutfeld? Oh, Jesus Christ.
Minutes to go, and I got to tell you, I heard Greg a few minutes ago, and I got to tell you, I don't know, Greg is off his meds if he believes that there was not evidence.
Excuse
That's
me?
What I'm saying.
What did you say?
Let me finish.
What did you say?
Excuse
me? What did he say? Am I off my meds?
Not evidence.
You're lucky you're not around here.
Let me finish. If you do believe that there was not evidence.
Excuse
That's
me?
what I'm saying.
What did you say?
Let me finish.
What did
Let
you
me
say?
finish.
Bro, why is Greg Gutfeld like operating as though he's been personally slighted? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, I can't believe like police can't kill black people with their bare hands. Or in this one instance, the cop that killed a black person with his bare hands, like, is getting his day in court. Like, this is making me so mad. Like, what? Like, why are you personally offended in this instance? Like, what kind of fucking psychotic, like, what level of racism is Greg Gutfeld on right now?
Excuse me? What did he say? Am I off my meds?
You're
lucky you're not around here.
Let me finish. If you do not believe that there was evidence that was supported to support these charges, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to tell you. This judge, as Janine said, conducted a fair hearing.
That is not what I said.
I'm not finished. As Martha said,
you are finished.
Due process actually worked in this case. And when you look at a police officer with his knee on a man's neck, battering, pushing down on that man's neck, that man is...
Greg Gutfeld, no, you are finished. What the fuck does that mean, dude? I don't even want to know. You know what I'm saying? Fuck's he talking about? No, you are finished, dude.
Calling for his mother, calling out for the community, calling out, saying he couldn't breathe, and the police officer didn't have enough in him to take his
Ted, if I could interrupt.
off the neck.
Okay. Let's watch this while I go pee. Sorry, boys.
Of Dante Wright.
I gotta go pee real bad.
The same
I'm gonna
county,
leave you with Al Sharpton for a second while I go pee.
We still have cases to fight, but this gives us the energy to fight on. And we are determined that we're gonna fight until we make federal law the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act must be law. We want to thank all that were involved, especially the Attorney General and the Governor and others. We want to thank President Biden, who the first time he came out of his house during the campaign, he flew to Houston and met with the family and Attorney Crump and I. And he sat there, and I will never forget, he said to George's daughter, that I heard you say your father is going to change the world. Well, we can now tell George's daughter she was right. Her father has begun the changing of the world for real. But before we do anything, we first want to pray and thank God, because somehow God made a way. He had mercy. We believe in a God that can even get through the cracks in the jury room and bring conscience and bring truth. And that jury, we want to thank them for letting God give them the strength wherever they are tonight. We want them to know we broke down in tears when we heard the verdict. We had to hold each other and hug in tears because too many nights we've cried. Many of us for decades spent nights in jail. But today we can wipe our tears away and fight on for another day. There's sunlight. We're going to keep going till we bring it for the Eric Gardners and the Breonna Taylors, whose boyfriend is here tonight. Kenny Walker. Sean Bell. So many that did not get this night. This night is for them. Let us pray. Let's lock arms and pray like we can, folks. Where? Come on, Brandon. Where's Filoni? Right here. Come on. Yeah, come on. You and Rodney come up front. You know you's hiding now. Brother Chris, get next to the Attorney General there. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for giving us the strength to stand together. Sometimes we would question each other. Sometimes we say this is just going to be a waste of time.
Inshallah,
But
brother.
somehow you touch us in the midnight hours and teach us to hold on. And that if we would be faithful over a few things, you'd give us the victory over many. We thank you because we know it was not any doing of ours, but your loving kindness and your tender mercy that made tonight possible. Bless those that worked, that made this prosecution something they couldn't deny. Bless those policemen that got on the stand and testified against another policeman. Bless the jury that listened
As an
to
atheist,
the
I'm triggered. Yeah, I don't really care about this stuff. I'm sorry, guys. Like, listen, I'm not a very, I'm not a very religious person in general. I also don't really, like, I'm not a big fan of Al Sharpton in general either. This part of the process is not as interesting or important for me, from my point of view. I mean, question for everyone who didn't think the election mattered. If Trump was still president, do you think he'd pardon Chauvin right now, or do you think he would have counter-programmed an announcement against the verdict reading? Yeah, I mean, what the fuck? God is watching. You want to go to hell, brother? If God is watching all the time, right? So, what's up? Like, it's not going to change whether or not I watch Al Sharpton pray on television. Okay. Donald Trump can't charge. It's not a federal case. That's one. Two, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, this is, guys, the reason why I look to Nancy Pelosi on top of looking to what do you call it? The reason why I look to Nancy Pelosi and talk about Nancy Pelosi while I simultaneously r/atheist take, guys, you know I am #1 at respecting people's religious liberties. Give me a fucking break. I don't care about like Al Sharpton doing a televised prayer. Your life is not going to change whether you hear it or not. I'm trying to sneak in as many fucking points of view as I can currently, okay? Anyway, listen. The problems that we talk about here on this broadcast, the problems that reoccur, the patterns that reoccur in the George Floyd case and Dante Wright, from all the way down from the paperwork, all the way down for the training that the officers were taught, all the way up to the criminal justice system. The entire system is fundamentally flawed. The entire system is slanted against black and brown individuals and poor people in general. So it does not matter if Joe Biden is the president or Donald Trump is the president. Sure, there are other aggravating factors when you have a reactionary president. Absolutely. Donald Trump being president galvanizes, emboldens these racist dipshits, right? Certainly. Okay, you understand? I get that. But these issues have been around. These factors, these principles, these fundamentals that are a really, unfortunately, important part of American history. These fundamentals have been around for a very long time. They've been around a lot longer than Joe Biden has, and goddamn Joe Biden has been around for a very long fucking time. And unfortunately, they will continue to be a problem. That's why I make fun of Nancy Pelosi when she says stuff like, oh, I'm glad that, come on, shouts out to George Floyd for dying. You're at Cash App, just go down the hall. Azan. This is not, as I've said already, this is not justice. What happened today is not justice. What happened today is the first step towards justice. What happened today is yet another instance of accountability against the police force, accountability against police brutality. Okay? I can't wait to put you on my banner. What? Fucking Christ, Zach. Okay. As I was saying, what happened today is the first step towards justice. All right.
You saw Derek Chauvin putting his hands behind his back, being handcuffed and let out of the court. What did you think?
Justice. People were suspecting that Van Jones would cry today, no matter what
I've seen
happens.
so many kids who've done so much less than him walk out of courtrooms in handcuffs with much less evidence. I've seen kids do 20 years, 30 years on snitch evidence. Just one kid testify against another kid and go away to prison. You don't have TV cameras and body cameras and cell phones. So many young people from that community.
He does have really good takes, though.
And cops getting away with murder over and over again. That's what justice looks like. When people all we want is the police to obey the law. We're not asking for anything but that, for the police to obey the law. And when they break the law, they should have handcuffs just like anybody else. We don't want them to be below us or beneath us. They should obey the law. That is what justice looks like.
You saw Derek Chauvin.
Wait, have you looked at Shapiro's Twitter yet? He makes me so mad. I need someone to counter him, please. I already did. Go look under the Ben Shapiro tweet and you'll see my reply. Worth remember the initial statement by the police? Yeah. I was going to talk about this earlier today, but if you want to understand why this entire system is fundamentally corrupt, remind yourself of how this interaction was originally documented by cops. He deleted the ratioed tweet? Shut the fuck up. Okay. They're making fun of you on the Cash App stream? Why? What are they saying? Jesus Christ, that's a 10x ratio. I'm going to jail, boys. I think that's illegal. I think I might literally not be legal, boys. You all played a part in that, so you're going to jail too. Yeah, you're coming to the Cash App streamer jail with me, boys. Let's do it. You look like you're in a prison cell right now. Yeah. A prison cell with bisexual lighting. Anyway, going back to the serious thing that we were talking about, but it's this is how the Minneapolis police originally reported George Floyd's murder, right? They said, man dies after medical incident during police interaction. On Monday evening, shortly after 8 p.m., officers from the Minneapolis Police Department responded to a 3700 block of Chicago Avenue South on a report of forgery in progress. Officers were advised that the suspect was sitting on top of a blue car and appeared to be under the influence. Two officers arrived and located the suspect, a male believed to be in his 40s, in his car. He was ordered to step from his car. After he got out, he physically resisted officers. Officers were able to get the suspect into handcuffs and noted that he appeared to be suffering medical distress. Officers called for an ambulance. He was transported to the Hennepin County Medical Center by an ambulance where he died short time later. So, the reason why I am mentioning this, at no time were the weapons of any type were used and involved in this incident. So, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because if it wasn't for cameras, if it wasn't for body cameras, if it wasn't for the numerous witnesses, if it wasn't for the testimony of the 911 dispatcher, if it wasn't for all of these people coming together and saying, what the fuck are you doing? George Floyd would be like the hundreds of local news stories that you never hear about. So I need you to remember that. That's the reason why, this is a first fucking step. And this shit happens all the goddamn time, dude. It went viral because people filmed it, because people were upset, because people were so disturbed They were so disturbed. Okay, I'll go and watch what AOC is saying in a second. But because people were so fucking disturbed that they got mad, they took to the streets. They showed their righteous anger in this circumstance. And a little bit of change occurred. It shouldn't take this much to get justice. I don't know how to watch AOC's Instagram. I'm not logged on to my Instagram on here, so is it like instagram.com/AOC and I'll be able to see it, or what's the deal? It should not take this much. Yeah, I can't. I need to log on to my Instagram to be able to watch AOC's live stream, unless you guys have another one. Another link or something. It's like not letting me watch it. I need to log into Instagram to watch it. I'm not going to log into my Instagram on the Cash App. I do need to log in, dude. I do need to literally log in to watch it. This sums it up. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite Malcolm X quotes. I've talked about this before many times. Here you go. It's the knife in the back.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. They won't even admit the knife is there.
You feel, however.
Millionaire getting paid millions by companies? What a socialist, says CEO of socialism. Thank you, CEO of socialism. Socialism is when you don't get paid, and the less you get paid, the more socialist it is. Okay. You could watch it later. She's just saying stuff that you saw. Maybe we are at acknowledging the knife is there, almost maybe. I mean, kind of. What am I doing to celebrate 420 and this what did this mayor say? George Floyd came to Minneapolis to better his life, but ultimately his life will have bettered our city. The jury, bro, it's so bad, dude. People are trying to desperately here. People are trying to desperately like say something nice, and it's just so bad. It's like you just come across as like a complete out of touch asshole when you say like, oh, it's cool that like George Floyd was murdered. Just don't say that.
Hello. Hey, how you doing?
How's Gianna doing?
This is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden calling George Floyd's family.
Nothing is going to make it all better, but at least God, now there's some justice.
Right.
And you know, I think Gianna's coming. My daddy's going to change the world. He's going to start to change it now.
That's right.
Yes. Amen.
Start to change it now. So, you've been incredible. You're an incredible family. I wish I were there just with my arms around you. I'm standing here with Cedric. We've been talking, we've been watching every second of this, and the Vice President, all of us, and we're all so relieved. Not just one verdict, all three, really on all three counts. And it's really important. I'm anxious to see.
God, he's so fucking good at mourning, dude.
I really am. And we're going to get a lot
He just is, dude. He's just good at fucking mourning, brother.
We're going to stay at it till we get it done.
Hopefully this is the momentum for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to get passed to have you sign.
That and a lot more. Not just that, but a lot more.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, this is going to be our first shot at dealing with genuine systemic racism. Look, there's two people here that feel strongly as I do. The Vice President, she wants to say something.
Okay.
I'm just so thankful to the entire family. Your courage, your commitment, your strength has been a strength for so many people for me. And this is a day of justice in America. And your family have been, and history is going to show real leaders at this moment where
The
we
officers
need
that stood by the way, for those of you asking, for what will happen to the officers that stood by, their case, are we going? Are we going in?
No, check it
Oh,
out.
okay. Their case is going to happen in a couple months, so we're waiting on their case as well.
And in George's name and memory, we are going to make sure his legacy is intact and that history will look back at this moment and know that it was an inflection moment. You had to sacrifice so much, your family did too. But we really do believe that with your leadership and the president that we have in the White House,
I just got a
that we're
15-minute
going to make
reminder
something
that
good come out of this
starting, so
tragedy, okay?
I'll get over there now. All right. I think, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls.
Second table, we're good.
MBs, well, I mean, they just want me to end it when the first table starts, so I'll take a little bit break myself too. Look, I love you guys. I'm gonna host the Cash App stream now. They're gonna go play Uno. Once that's over and done with, like, Will and I are gonna be participating. This is months in advance that we fucking I said that I was gonna do this, but I'm gonna go play some Uno right now with some of your favorite streamers and shit like that. I think Matt Pat is here too, which I think is really cool. I've never met him. I don't know if he's still here, but that was like one person I was like excited to meet, and also excited to hang out with Will and Austin and all them.
And we fucking love you, chat.
Yeah,
fucking love you.
So I'm going. Yeah, I know it's weird. I know it's like kind of a weird change of pace, but that's literally what I was supposed to do today. And luckily, they allowed me to even stream from here because I had made this obligation prior, and I didn't want to fucking last second like ditch and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not coming in. So I am going to host the Cash App stream right now, okay? And I will try to be back after. As soon as that's over, as soon as that's done, I'm going to most likely go home and start the broadcast again. But some good news here today. Like I said, it's not justice. It's a first step. It's accountability. And, that's ultimately a good thing. I know the bar is set very low and it feels shitty sometimes, but you got to take the W's where you can. All right? So hopefully I will win now $1 million of Bitcoin. $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. Which could be $1 million. Who knows? How does that work? I don't know. Anyway.
Magnets, how do they work?
Yeah, I don't know.